After the man went to the hospital and had his manhood removed, he found out it was a horrible mistake. The cancer cells had already spread throughout his entire body. But, surprisingly, when he heard the news, he wasn't angry at all. Instead, clutching the lucky charm his late wife had left him, he burst into loud laughter. Because to him, dying like this, ending his family line forever, was the only way to atone for his wife's tragic death. But, when he opened his eyes again, what you saw was the dusty, faded wedding decal pasted on the window of your old village home. Panicking, you frantically searched inside and out. Then, you saw her, Zhou Yao, shivering without a stitch of clothing, curled up tightly on the brick bed. Her big, beautiful eyes were completely dead and hollow, and on her once pale, flawless skin, were crisscrossing, ugly purple bruises. Seeing her again, the woman who had haunted your dreams for half a lifetime, you were instantly overwhelmed with emotion. You immediately rushed forward and pulled her tightly into your arms. You had a lifetime of guilt and longing to pour out, but in that moment, the words just caught in your throat. All you could do was break down and sob like a child. In your previous life, you viciously schemed to make Zhou Yao fall into the reservoir, making sure the whole village saw her soaking wet and exposed. Just as you, heroically, pulled her out, to save her ruined reputation, she was forced to marry you. But from the very first day Zhou Yao stepped into your home, she never knew a single day of happiness. Trapped in your endless, brutal beatings, she eventually took your child in her arms and jumped into that very same reservoir to end it all. It wasn't until her older brother dragged their lifeless bodies out of the freezing water that you finally woke up to your monstrous sins. After that tragedy, you rode the economic boom and built a massive fortune, more money than you could spend in 10 lifetimes. But the woman who traded her life to teach you how to be a human being was gone forever. Just as you were drowning in the shock and joy of being reborn, a shrill, terrified scream snapped you back. "Ah, get away, don't touch me," looking at Zhou Yao trembling uncontrollably. The memory hit you. This was the day she had swallowed her pride and borrowed money from her family to buy baby cereal, only for you to violently snatch it away to buy booze. And worse, after coming home drunk, you had brutally forced yourself on her. Sickened by the memory, you raised your hand and viciously slapped yourself across the face, over a dozen times. Soon, thick red blood was dripping down the corner of your mouth. Zhou Yao just watched you quietly, and let out a bitter, mocking laugh. She couldn't even remember how many times you'd put on this exact show. After all, every time you sobered up, you would fall to your knees and beg for forgiveness. But barely 2 days later, your fists would inevitably rain down on her again. She could swallow her pride and endure your twisted cruelty in the bedroom. But she absolutely could not stand watching her baby starve. Suddenly, the weak, pitiful wailing of the infant brought a tiny spark of life back into Zhou Yao's dead eyes. Panicking, she threw on a tattered shirt and snatched up her little girl. But because Zhou Yao had been starving for so long, she had no milk to give. The desperately hungry baby wailed even louder. That heartbreaking cry snapped you out of your guilt. You leapt off the bed and grabbed your clothes from the dirt floor. "Wife, just wait here. I'm going to get our little girl something to eat right now." With that, you sprinted on your long legs toward the village grocery store. When old man Huang at the store saw you, he flashed his stained yellow teeth. "Hey, what kind of liquor are you after this time?" "Uncle Huang, can you spot me a bag of baby cereal? I swear I'll bring you the money tomorrow." Hearing you ask for credit again, old man Huang just stared at the swollen, bloody handprints covering your face. Without saying a single word, he reached up to the shelf and handed you a bag of baby cereal. You thanked him profusely and sprinted all the way back home. But the moment you burst through the door, seeing your wife cowering exactly where you left her, your heart twisted in agonizing pain. "Wife, look, I got the baby food. I am warning you. Don't you dare trade away my daughter. If you do, I swear I'll curse the Zhang family to die out without a single heir." Seeing her bare her teeth like a cornered animal, you froze completely. Through the fog of time, a horrifying memory clicked into place. In your past life, you had actually planned to give your own baby daughter away to a wealthy couple in town. Trading everything for booze. What kind of sick bastard was I? No wonder I died of testicular cancer in my past life. I completely deserved it. With that, you placed the bowl of rice paste onto the broken down little bed. "I swear to God, I will never sell our little girl. Tomorrow, I'll go into town and find some work." After saying that, you turn around and walk right out the door. Once outside, you slap yourself hard across the face a few times. If your memory serves you right, it was this very month that Zhou Yao jumped into the reservoir with your daughter in her arms. At that thought, a violent shiver runs down your spine. Seeing that it's getting late, and there's absolutely no food left in the house, 20 minutes later, you arrive at the foot of the back mountain. You pull the elastic band straight out of your pants and rig up a makeshift slingshot. Smack, you fire off a pebble. A turtle dove flaps its wings and takes off. In your past life, after striking it rich, you completely fell in love with shooting sports and even played around with slingshots for a while. After squatting in the grass for half the day, you finally managed to trap a wild pheasant in your net and knock down a few turtle doves with the slingshot. The doves are tiny. All 4 combined don't even weigh a pound or 2. But that pheasant? That thing is a fat 5-pounder. You tie your catch together with some vines and hang them on a tree branch. But just as you're getting ready to carry them home, you suddenly realize the whole pile behind you has vanished. A cold sweat instantly breaks out all over your body. Are you dealing with a damn ghost right now? Suddenly, you notice a flash of light coming from the safety amulet hanging on your chest. It's the very thing your wife always wore close to her heart in your past life. It isn't made of jade, and it isn't plastic either. She hadn't taken it off until the day she drowned herself, leaving it right by the edge of the reservoir. When you take a closer look, the glow from the amulet vanishes again. You can't help but reach out to touch it, and in the very next second, you are pulled into a strange dimension. Just judging by the size, it's not even as big as your old hospital room. After testing it out a few times, you finally figure it out. Just pinching the amulet brings you inside, and simply thinking about leaving pulls you right back out. With a cheat code like this, you can definitely make a massive comeback in this lifetime. On your way back home, you notice a lot of families already have electricity running. Yet your place is still lit by a kerosene lamp. The hardest years of the Great Famine have long passed, but somehow you're still living hand to mouth. You grab the catch and head straight into the kitchen. Once the sky goes pitch black outside, you carry out a massive bowl of turtle dove soup and step into the main room. Yow yow, time to eat. I made some turtle dove soup. It'll help you produce milk for the baby. You have to call out 3 times before Joe Yao slowly creeps out from the back room. Seeing the huge bowl of soup steaming on the table, she doesn't rush closer. She just stands frozen in place, her eyes burning with pure, unadulterated hatred. At that moment, staring at your wife in her clothes covered entirely in patches. A sharp wave of guilt and sorrow washes over your chest. In this era of absolute scarcity, Joe Yao's beauty still shines through so brightly. But you were just a complete deadbeat. Who locked her down and treated her like total garbage? Seeing her so terrified and guarded now. Even though you're dying to just sit and share a meal with her, you know damn well that as long as you're standing there, she absolutely won't touch her chopsticks. I'll go eat in the kitchen. After mumbling that, you turn around and walk out. Meanwhile, Joe Yao remains glued to the spot, staring down at the massive bowl brimming with rich meat soup, a deeply surreal feeling welling up inside her. Is this a dream? Or, is this my last meal before the execution? In the past, whenever there was even a single bite of food at home, you'd always stuff yourself first, while she could only drink the leftover dishwater. So right now, even though her stomach was rumbling with hunger, Joe Yao didn't dare to just take a bite. It wasn't until she walked out the door and saw you squatting under the window drinking soup, with a big wild pheasant hanging by the kitchen door. Guessing you must have gone up the mountain to hunt, that Joe Yao finally turned around and went back to the main room. She picked up her bowl and started eating. After finishing the meal, you took on all the dishwashing under your wife's wary gaze. You used to be such a lazy bum. This was probably the very first time you actually did proper chores in this house. After finishing up, thinking about the bastard things you pulled during the day, you went and boiled a pot of hot water, bringing it into the room. Ching ching, use this water to wash up. After saying that, you put down the basin and quickly turned to leave, sitting down by the door. After a long while, the faint splashing sound of water finally came from inside the room. Meanwhile, you looked up at the starry sky, figuring out a way to make some money tomorrow, to improve the family's situation as soon as possible. It was already autumn, and the winter temperatures of -20 degrees would freeze dripping water into solid ice. Your wife and kid both desperately needed new winter coats. Otherwise, they wouldn't survive this winter. Once you heard the water stop, you finally got up and walked into the room. Seeing you suddenly appear, Joe Yao was so terrified she dodged backwards, shrinking away. Don't come any closer. Seeing this, you silently cursed yourself for being such a total bastard before, knowing perfectly well her trauma wouldn't heal overnight. So, you gently reminded her. Honey, I just came in to take the water out. With that, you picked up the basin from the floor and walked out. Joe Yao completely ignored you. The moment you stepped out, she quickly got dressed. Out in the yard, you used the leftover hot water your wife had bathed with to give yourself a quick wash. After all, to catch those turtle doves, you had been crawling in the bushes for ages. After washing up, you sat down on the door sill, recalling the memories of your past life. There was a time when some outsiders kept wanting to go into the mountains to forage. Afraid of getting lost, they hired you, since you were doing nothing anyway, to be their guide. Back then, you just thought these city folks had too much time and money on their hands. But having watched them enough, you figured out exactly how to pick those wild dendrobium orchids. Now, you could totally go dig them up and sell them yourself. Thinking of this, you instantly felt a burst of energy. You threw together a torch, grabbed some amateur tools, and called out to the room. "Yao yao, lock the door tight, I'm heading out for a bit." You were out for the entire night, not getting back home until 4 in the morning. You were pretty lucky, actually. On your way down, you stumbled upon a wild civet's nest and pulled out a few baby civets that hadn't even opened their eyes yet. Getting home, you swiftly prepped the meat, left one in the kitchen, and then carried 2 bamboo baskets straight to town on your shoulder pole. The town held a market on odd-numbered days. You found a crowded spot and took the civet meat and pelts out of the baskets. "Young man, that's some nice mountain catch you got there." You originally thought if you couldn't sell them, 7 yuan, you'd just take them back and stew them in a pot. 7 yuan, to share some with your brothers and sisters' families. 7 yuan, unexpectedly, right after you set things up, 7 yuan. Someone actually asked about the price of the civet meat. 39 yuan, the old man and woman saw that a strapping young lad like you, 39 yuan, was tanned so dark, 39 yuan, looking exactly like a local from the mountains. 39 yuan, plus, the price was an absolute steal at 39 yuan, so he bought 2 in one go. In these times, you still need ration coupons to buy meat, so wild game like this is the only thing folks can actually get their hands on. Going to give our little grandson a real treat back home. Right before they left, the old lady tugged at her husband's clothes, giving him a little nod. They even bought up all the civet pelts, saying she was going to make some warm gloves for the boy. And just like that, in less than 2 hours, every last civet cat was sold out. Afterward, you took that precious wild herb you foraged yesterday and headed straight to the oldest pharmacy in town. The moment you took it out, the old man behind the counter, his eyes nearly popped right out of his thick, heavy glasses. He carefully received the rare herb, turning it over to inspect every little detail. Then he held out his hand, signaling a price. "Little brother, I'll give you this much." When you saw the number he offered, your eyebrows furrowed. This guy was trying to scam you like some clueless hillbilly. So, you reached right out to grab your stuff back. Seeing this, the old man quickly pinned it down with his hand, stroking his goatee to calm you down. "Hey now, little brother, if you don't like the price, we can negotiate. How about 6 10 yuan bills? I really can't go any higher." Although this precious herb had accidentally been snapped when you stepped on it, its true value was still worth way more than that. But, you were desperate for the cash. Your wife and kid were back at home, starving. After thinking for a moment, you decided to sell it. Then, you went to buy some meat and flour. You had to run to 2 different supply stores just to find baby formula, which was incredibly rare back then. Right before heading home, you thought of your wife and those worn out, patched up clothes she had on yesterday. So, you walked right into the only small, state-run department store in town. On the way back, you took a detour to visit an old hunter in his 70s. You gave him a huge pile of food, all just to borrow his most prized possession, his hunting rifle. In times like these, you needed ration tickets just to buy meat. If you wanted true meat freedom, you had to hunt it yourself. As you were getting close to home, you finally spotted Zhou Yao out in the fields, working with the baby strapped to her back. And when your older brother, Zhao Zhengxing, saw you, he stormed over. He was absolutely furious. "Where the hell have you been? Leaving your wife to slave away in the fields all by herself?" Looking at your angry brother, a wave of emotion hit you. I was working in town. I picked up some meat and flour on the way back. Bring my sister-in-law and the kids over for dinner tonight, okay?" Hearing this, your brother shot you a deeply suspicious glare. He looked you up and down, noticing the fresh mud splattered all over your pant legs. Then, he peeked into your stuffed basket. Your sister-in-law just steamed a whole pot of cornmeal buns this afternoon. "I'll have your wife bring a few back for you guys. We won't be coming over for dinner. Just, treat her better from now on." You didn't say another word after that. You simply nodded, hoisted your basket, and headed home. If you were going to win your wife back, you had to win over her stomach first. So, you rolled up your sleeves and got to work in the kitchen. Right around dusk, Zhou Yao finally came home, carrying a few of those cornmeal buns. But the moment she stepped into the yard, the rich, savory smell of cooking meat hit her. She hurried over to the kitchen door, only to find you bustling away at the old, shabby stove. Zhou Yao had been working her fingers to the bone all day. She was absolutely starving. After putting the buns away, she walked into the bedroom to lay the sleeping baby down in the crib. But when she turned her head, she saw a brand new tin of baby formula sitting right there on the table. Instantly, the blood rushed straight to Zhou Yao's head. She stormed into the kitchen, raised her hand, and slapped you hard across the face. Did you go bully my mother into giving you money again? How can you be such a piece of trash? It's only when your wife suddenly brings the whole thing up that you finally remember that you really were such a bastard before, even threatening your mother-in-law with a knife for money. So you quickly deny it, stammering, "I didn't. I earned all this money today." Saying that, you quickly reach toward your pants. Seeing this, Zhou Yao gets even more furious. She steps right up and slaps you hard across the face. How can you be thinking about that at a time like this? Taking 2 harsh slaps in a row leaves you caught between laughing and crying. Seeing that Zhou Yao has no intention of stopping, you hastily pull out the 5 large bills hidden in your pants. "Honey, this is the money I earned today. Please, take it." Looking at those large bills forced into her hands, Zhou Yao's head spins dizzily. Seeing your wife about to collapse, you reach out to catch her, but she slaps your hands away fiercely. She simply can't believe that a good-for-nothing loafer like you could bring home this much money in a single day. What kind of shady, illegal things has he been doing out there? Oh God, what are we going to do? We really can't go on living like this. Seeing that Zhou Yao doesn't believe a single word you say, you almost drop to your knees in front of her. "I went up the mountain last night and picked wild dendrobium herbs. I also happened to stumble upon a wild civets nest. I traded all of that for 6 large bills. I spent 1 bill to buy some food, and now this is all that's left." Hearing about the dendrobium herbs, a glimmer of light finally returns to Zhou Yao's eyes. They always say, ginseng in the north, dendrobium in the south. That stuff has high medicinal value and can definitely sell for good money. But they only grow deep in the mountains. They're incredibly hard to find, let alone in the pitch black night. But thinking about it carefully, when she woke up this morning, there were indeed bloodstains by the water well. And there really is civet meat stewing in the pot. Could it be that she actually misjudged him this time? But how on earth did he even recognize dendrobium herbs? Under Zhou Yao's intense gaze, you raise your right hand and swear, "I swear I didn't do anything illegal. May I die childless if I'm lying." Seeing your wife's breathing finally steady a bit, and her eyes lose some of their fierce edge, you breathe a heavy sigh of relief. "Yao Yao, hurry up and put the money away safely. I'm going to drop some meat off at my brother's house, so they can have a taste of something fresh too." Even though hiding the money in your secret inventory space would be safer, handing the money over to your wife means handing over control of the household. Afterward, you carry a plate of stir-fried civet meat, along with some freshly stewed carp and tofu soup, setting them down on the table in the main room. Then, you head back to the kitchen, scoop up a bowl full of meat, and make your way toward your older brother's house. On the way, you even pay off the porridge debt you owed old man Huang, along with your previous bar tab. Meanwhile, clutching the large bills in her hand, Zhou Yao hurries back into the bedroom. In the 2+ years she's been married to you, you've always been the one wringing every last penny out of her. This is the very first time you've ever handed money over voluntarily. So, she splits the cash into 5 separate piles, and carefully hides each one in a different spot. Once that's all done, hearing the steady sound of footsteps outside, she steps out of the room. Staring at the steaming hot dish and soup on the table, she falls into a sudden daze. She immediately goes to the kitchen for a look. The flour bin is more than half full, and there's even wine. The oil jar is completely topped off too, and hanging from the rafters is a massive slab of pork belly weighing over 10 pounds. Has he really changed? Zhou Yao wasn't so sure yet. After all, a leopard can't change its spots. Seeing Zhou Yao sit down, you put a wild chicken leg into her bowl. "I'm heading up the mountain first thing tomorrow morning. Before winter sets in, I need to check every spot where I can dig up wild medicinal herbs. It's the fastest way to make cash right now. Once the country's economy opens up, we'll have the money to invest in other things." Hearing you say this, Zhou Yao froze for a second, then gave a slight nod. She thought you just got incredibly lucky last night finding that one herb. There was no way you'd get that lucky every time. Zhou Yao wanted to remind you that if you really wanted to earn money, you should find a real job. Even if it only paid a few cents a day, it was still better than nothing. But knowing your temper, she figured as long as you weren't out gambling and drinking, she'd just let you be. Holding her chopsticks, she tried to put the chicken leg back into your bowl. Seeing this, you quickly used the baby as an excuse to stop her. "Honey, you're way too thin. Eat more, or the baby won't have enough milk. Even the best formula can't beat breast milk. Plus, formula is expensive and hard to find. This is carp and tofu soup. It'll help you produce more milk." That comment earned you a hard glare from Zhou Yao. Her knuckles turned white gripping the chopsticks. But she didn't refuse again. You had been busting your back all day and night. And you were exhausted. The family's money problems were finally sorted for now. So after filling your stomach, you just said, "Honey, I'm going to bed." You got up, ducked into the bedroom, and were out cold the second your head hit the pillow. When Zhou Yao finished washing the dishes and came back in, she saw the clothes you dumped on the floor. Frowning, she picked them up and washed them by the moonlight. Done with the chores, she dragged her exhausted body back to the bedroom, accidentally kicking a woven basket on the floor. She picked it up and looked inside. To her shock, there was a brand new outfit for a woman, along with 3 sets of baby clothes. She stood there, staring at your sleeping face for a long time. "I just can't figure him out anymore." Meanwhile, you slept like the dead. Your little girl woke up crying twice during the night, but it didn't even make you stir. It wasn't until early morning that you finally groggily opened your eyes. You rolled over and saw Zhou Yao curled up, her back facing you. She was only wearing a worn-out little tank top, and the sight made you swallow hard. After all, in your past life, you never touched another woman after she died. So you reached out and pulled her into your arms. This all felt like a dream. It was so surreal. Your wife suddenly goes stiff in your arms, clearly resisting your touch. So, you swallow the bitter feeling in your chest and roll out of bed. Guess you will just have to rough it for a while. You pull your clean clothes off the clothesline. Not even caring that they are still damp, you quickly throw them on. Then, you nimbly grab the dishes out of the basket and set them on the table. Right then, Zhou Yao sits up in bed. She glares at you coldly and says, "If you really want to change, then go find a job. As long as you are willing to put in the sweat, you can make a little over $10 a month, and our family will actually be able to get by." Hearing your wife speak to you on her own initiative, your heart leaps with joy. You knew Zhou Yao was just looking out for you, but since God gave you a second chance at life, you knew you had to save up enough startup capital right as the economy fully opened up. In your past life, after she and your little girl left, you were just like a stray dog. You wandered the streets for a while, until you finally met someone who gave you a helping hand. That was how you got the chance to work as a clerk at the state-owned store. And because you had a smooth way with words, you gradually worked your way up to manager. And because of that, you finally got the chance to cross social classes and rub elbows with the big shots. But in this lifetime, you were determined to rely on your own 2 hands to make your first pot of gold as quickly as possible. So, hunting and foraging for wild herbs was the absolute fastest way to make cash right now. And even better, you still had your memories from your past life, so you knew exactly where to find the most valuable herbs. With an opportunity this good, how could you possibly pass it up? The only problem was, you didn't know how to explain to your wife why you were so dead set on going up the mountain to forage. Seeing you stayed totally quiet, Zhou Yao just figured your usual stubborn temper was acting up again. She gave up, pulled the covers over herself, and lay back down. "In the pot on the kitchen stove, I left some cornmeal buns for you." Hearing her say that, you raised an eyebrow, a huge, uncontainable smile spreading across your face. You immediately walked over to the bed and planted a big, sweet kiss right on Zhou Yao's cheek. "Honey, I already talked it over with my oldest brother yesterday. You don't need to go over and help him out today. Oh, and when you have a minute, take half of that pork in the kitchen and bring it over to your mom's place." But when Zhou Yao saw you leaning in, she actually thought she had made you mad, and that you were going to hit her again. She never expected you to surprise her with a loving kiss like that. As for what you said, she completely spaced out, and didn't catch a single word or see a thing. Before heading out, you even kissed your little girl. By the time Zhou Yao finally snapped out of it, you were already long gone. In the dimly lit room, it was just her and her daughter fast asleep in the little bed. Even though it was still really early, she tossed and turned, completely unable to fall back asleep. She ended up lying there until the sun was high in the second sister-in-law. "What brings you here so early? Is something the matter?" Lu Guiwa's eyes darted greedily around the kitchen, and a huge, eager smile spread across her face. "Fourth brother's wife, I heard from first sister-in-law that your family ate meat last night. Did your man win big at the gambling tables?" Saying this, she didn't even wait for a reply. Her feet seemed to have a mind of their own, making a beeline straight for the kitchen door. "Good heavens, don't tell me fourth brother went out and robbed someone. How much did a massive chunk of meat like this cost? We haven't seen a single drop of grease in nearly 6 months. The kids have been fussing for days, but I just couldn't bear to spend the money." She finally managed to tear her eyes away from the meat, only to catch a glimpse of the pitch-black wall, where half a wild pheasant was actually hanging. Instantly, she completely lost her cool. "Fourth brother's wife, you really need to keep a close eye on your man. If he keeps gambling, he might end up in a labor camp." Hearing her say this, Zhou Yao's face slowly darkened. "Second sister-in-law, what kind of talk is that? If he breaks the law, the police will naturally come and arrest him. You don't need to worry your head about it. Lu Guihua opened her mouth to argue, but her eyes suddenly darted around. As if remembering something, she swallowed the words right back down. Now, don't get mad at your second sister-in-law. I'm just worried about our fourth brother, aren't I? My husband is his own flesh and blood brother, after all. And my little Bao has been crying his eyes out, craving some meat. Do you think you could lend me 5 pounds of meat first? I'll have your second brother bring you the cash later. After dealing with her for over 2 years, Zhou Yao saw right through her. She had long since figured out what kind of piece of work her second sister-in-law was. Anything that went into her house was a one-way trip, gone forever. Asking for 5 pounds of meat right off the bat, let alone the fact that she wouldn't dare make the call to lend it out. Even if she did run the household, it was still a hard no. I can't make a decision on something this big. Second sister-in-law, you'll just have to wait for my husband to get back and tell him yourself. With that, she walked over and bolted the kitchen door. Seeing her act like this, Lu Guihua felt incredibly annoyed. Alright, fine, just remember to tell him when he gets back. And have him bring the meat over to my place. As she twisted around to leave, the fake smile completely dropped from Lu Guihua's face. Meanwhile, up on the mountain, it was fast approaching noon. Relying on those fuzzy memories from your past life, it took you quite a bit of effort to finally track down a wild dendrobium plant. Thanks to your experience fumbling around in the dark yesterday, by the time most of the plant's root system was exposed, it was already late in the day. This plant was way bigger than the one you found yesterday. It wasn't until the sky was practically pitch black that you finally, very carefully, managed to dig the massive thing completely out of the ground. Just as you were packing up to head down the mountain and go home, you turned around, only to come face to face with a Sika deer. From the looks of it, it was here to munch on the wild dendrobium. Seeing this, you quickly pulled the shotgun you traded for yesterday out of your spatial inventory. In the blink of an eye, a gunshot blasted through the forest, sending flocks of birds scattering in a panic. Meanwhile, back at the house, Zhou Yao had already finished cooking dinner. After warming up some formula for your daughter, she still didn't see you coming back. And her brows furrowed in worry. Wild dendrobium wasn't exactly something you could just stumble upon. He really needs to just settle down and learn a proper trade, she thought. Just as Zhou Yao was lost in her thoughts, you quietly slipped into the courtyard. It wasn't until you started pulling things out of your bamboo basket that Zhou Yao heard the commotion from inside the house. She walked out, holding your daughter in her arms. Go wash your hands and eat. With that, she turned right back into the house with the baby. You noticed your wife take a quick peek into the basket, but she didn't say a single word. Once you stepped inside and saw the piping hot food laid out on the table, your eyes welled up with tears. You wanted nothing more than to jump back to your past life and slap yourself senseless. Such a beautiful, devoted wife. How could you have failed to cherish her back then? You walked over to the table, sat down, and started wolfing down the food. Honey, I'm going to pop over to the village chief's house later. We're getting the house wired for electricity in the next few days. Hearing this, Zhou Yao's hand paused as she patted the baby. She couldn't help but speak up. If we get electricity connected, we'll have to pay a utility bill every single month from now on. After she said it, she sneaked a timid glance at you, terrified that she might have ticked you off enough to make you flip the table. You sharply caught that look of fear on Zhou Yao's face, and immediately put down your chopsticks. You walked over to the door and carried the bamboo basket inside. Honey, look, this is what I dug up today. I'm taking it to the pharmacy in town to sell in a few days. And it should fetch a pretty decent price. Zhou Yao just stared blankly at the wild dendrobium. She raised her eyes to look at you, asking in total disbelief. Did you really dig this up yourself? Seeing her reaction, you quickly explained, I swear to you, I didn't steal or rob anyone for it. This is honestly the result of me digging around in the mountains all day. Seeing the completely sincere look on your face, Zhou Yao gave a hesitant, half-believing nod. Your second sister-in-law dropped by today. She wanted to borrow 5 pounds of pork. Seeing the long face Zhou Yao was pulling, it was obvious she was pretty upset. You guessed that while you were out of the house. Seeing that second sister-in-law had upset her, you put on a serious face and said, From now on, you are the boss of this house. You're in charge of all the money and everything we own. If you don't want to lend anything out, we simply won't. Hearing your words, Zhou Yao felt a flutter of uncertainty in her heart. She hesitated for a good while before saying timidly, I don't want to lend it. Second sister-in-law always says she's just borrowing, but she definitely won't ever return it. It wouldn't be the first time she's taken our things without giving them back. Hearing Zhou Yao's words, a relieved smile appeared on your face. You affectionately tapped her on the nose. If we don't want to lend it, we won't. We don't have to put up with her nonsense. That gentle smile of yours left Zhou Yao completely stunned. She quickly picked up your daughter and retreated to the inner room. As for you, after filling your stomach, you washed the dishes spotlessly clean, and then cut off half a pound of meat. You slipped out the door into the pitch-black night, when the village chief, Wang Shenju, saw it was you. His dark, weathered face froze in surprise, but the moment his eyes landed on the meat in your hands, his wrinkled face bloomed into a massive smile. Zhao Kun, what brings you to your uncle's place this late at night? He asked warmly, swiftly taking the meat from your hands. I want to get some electric lights installed at the house, you replied. Could you help set that up when you have the time? Consider it done. I'll get that all sorted out for you first thing tomorrow. Hearing his promise, you didn't linger. You stood up, thanked him, and turned to leave. But when you arrived back home, you were shocked to see Zhou Yao standing in the dark kitchen, secretly gnawing on the leftover meat bones you had discarded. The sight brought a sharp, stinging pain to your eyes, and it felt as if all the blood in your veins had frozen solid. With a hoarse, trembling voice, you asked, What are you doing? Hearing your voice cut through the dark, Zhou Yao shuddered violently in terror. The bone dropped from her lips and clattered onto the floor. She looked out into the yard at you, her face twisted in sheer panic. Please, don't hit me. These are just your leftovers. I just thought it'd be such a shame to throw them away. In that moment, it felt as though a lightning bolt had struck you down. You had never felt such crushing defeat in your life. Overcome, you dropped to your knees right in front of her with a heavy thud. But that only made Zhou Yao scream out in pure terror. What are you going to do to me? Zhou Yao cried, her trembling eyes lowering to the ground. Looking at the man kneeling right in front of her, she suddenly felt a warm dampness soaking through her clothes. He was actually crying. Her long-closed heart seemed to soften just a little. Seeing your wife so terrified just for eating your leftovers felt like a knife twisting right into your heart. So you slowly stood up and gently cupped your wife's pale cheeks. You leaned down to kiss the tears from her eyes. Honey, go wait in the living room. I'll bring the food in when it's ready. You are my absolute lifesaver. Zhou Yao didn't quite get what that meant. Blushing furiously, she bolted out of the kitchen like she'd seen a ghost. You busied yourself in the kitchen for a bit, and soon, a plate of mouth-watering stir-fried pork was ready. The coarse-grained buns that scratched your throat going down, she treated like treasure, reluctant to take even a single bite. But the moment you stepped into the bedroom, a glimpse of her beautiful, snow-white back caught your eye. Instantly, a rush of heat surged through your body. You closed the distance in a few quick steps, and pulled her tightly into your arms from behind. Honey, please, never leave me again. Lost in the passion, Zhou Yao felt for the very first time that being intimate like this could actually feel so wonderful and deeply satisfying. It was the first time since their wedding night that the two of them slept tangled up together so lovingly. Remembering everything that happened last night, Zhou Yao felt her cheeks burning hot. But when she turned her head and looked at the baby's crib, her face instantly went completely pale with sheer panic. She realized she hadn't heard their daughter cry even once the whole night. Seeing your wife's sudden panic, with her eyes locked dead on the crib, you quickly scrambled right out of bed. You darted over to the crib in a few strides, only to see that your little girl was already wide awake, staring back with her big, bright eyes and giggling. Right then, looking down at your daughter, your heart just completely melted. You carefully scooped her up and cradled her in your arms. You brought her back to the bed, seeing that their little girl was perfectly fine and smiling so brightly. The massive weight on Zhou Yao's chest finally lifted, and her fiercely tense nerves completely relaxed. Immediately, her eyes teared up, and she almost burst out crying. She was so deeply upset with herself for sleeping so heavily last night. A baby this tiny. If anything bad had happened to her, how could she even go on living? Honey, just lay back down with our little girl for a bit. I'll go make some breakfast for you. Meanwhile, Zhou Yao checked the diaper tucked under their daughter. Even though it was put on a bit clumsily, it was actually completely fresh and clean. No wonder she didn't hear the baby cry all night. That total jerk actually got up to take care of her. It was the very first time since she gave birth that he willingly took care of their baby. So, has he really changed? Could she actually risk trusting him just one more time? Meanwhile, you were skillfully busy whipping things up in the kitchen. By the time your wife came out holding the baby, breakfast was already done. Tofu, fresh baby greens, a warm bowl of cornmeal porridge, and some hearty grain buns. Shirtless, you gently took the baby from Zhou Yao's arms. Honey, go wash up first. But Zhou Yao still felt a little worried. Yet watching you look so incredibly clumsy trying to hold such a tiny baby, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. That's your own flesh and blood, you know. She's not a tiger. It's not like she's gonna bite you or anything. While eating, the village chief, Wang Shenju, showed up with the electrician. The moment they walked into the yard, they spotted Zhou Yao sitting at the table eating, while you were strolling around shirtless with the baby in your arms. He caught sight of a perfectly neat little bite mark on your inner arm and gave a highly suggestive smirk. Zhao Kun, you're not done with breakfast yet? You honestly hadn't expected him to bring someone over this early. So you brought the village chief and the electrician out to the front gate to shoot the breeze for a bit. After Zhou Yao finished her meal and went back into the room, you finally handed the baby over to your wife. Then, you fished out a pack of Da Qian Men cigarettes from your baggy pants pocket. The village chief looked at the cigarette in your hand, flashing a big, yellow-toothed grin as he chuckled. Look at you moving up in the world, you rascal. A pack of these costs 40 cents. The electrician beside him gave an even goofier smile, tucking the cigarette behind his ear. He dragged his ladder around to the back of the house, thinking this job was totally worth it. He wouldn't normally splurge on 40-cent cigarettes for himself, but this family sure was generous. Once the power was hooked up, you headed back inside. The moment you walked in, a shirt came flying right at your face. Before you could even figure out what was going on, you heard Zhou Yao snap. Hurry up and put a shirt on. Walking around shirtless, what were you thinking? Right then, your back was covered in a few fresh scratch marks. Ones Zhou Yao had left there last night. The village chief and the electrician had definitely seen them, but neither of them said a word. You, on the other hand, were completely clueless, just wandering around bare-chested. This made Zhou Yao so embarrassed she wished the ground would just swallow her up. With outsiders right there, she was too shy to point it out. It wasn't until you left for the mountain that Zhou Yao, clutching her burning cheeks, finally managed to calm down. Then, she went back to taking off the mattress cover to wash it. She moved the baby's little crib out into the yard. She placed the baby inside and filled the basin with water. She was just about to wash the bedding when her mother walked over, carrying a basket on her arm. Inside, there were some eggs and a small piece of meat. Seeing her mother, Zhou Yao quickly wiped her hands and stood up. Mom, what brings you here? Her mother took the basket into the kitchen, looking her daughter up and down. Seeing Zhou Yao's worn-out, ill-fitting clothes, her eyes welled up with tears. She quickly looked away, picked her granddaughter up from the crib, and said, I just finished the chores at home, so I came over to see you. As she spoke, she looked around the run-down 3-room thatched mud house, feeling a constant, deep regret. She never should have agreed to this marriage. She felt she had ruined her daughter's life. Yao Yao, Mom has thought it over. If you really can't keep living with him, just divorce him. You're still young, you have your whole life ahead of you. You can't let that scumbag ruin it. Hearing her mother's words, Zhou Yao froze for a moment. She sat on the stool without making a sound for quite a while. That day, when you snatched away the money she had borrowed from her parents, the money meant for their daughter's baby food just to buy alcohol, she had felt completely and utterly hopeless. She felt that being with you, there was absolutely no hope in sight. Even the thought of death had crossed her mind. At that moment, she just wanted to grab her daughter and jump into the reservoir. But after you sobered up, first, you were so full of remorse. You slapped yourself in the face over a dozen times. And then, you rushed out in a panic to buy the baby food. Over the past few days, she watched you, and it was like you had truly become a different person. You stopped going out to fool around, and you even stopped drinking. Seeing her daughter staring down in silence, her mother assumed she was worried about the baby. She spoke up, if you want to keep the baby, Mom can help you raise her. As she said this, she hesitated for a moment. It's just that, in the future, if you're at home looking after a child, it's going to be really hard to find another husband. Divorce is so incredibly rare these days. No matter how bitter or hard life gets, a woman just has to grit her teeth and push through. Hearing that her mother had even thought ahead to her remarrying, and planned everything out for her, Zhou Yao took the baby back from her mother's arms. Mom, I'm not thinking about divorce right now. It looks like he's slowly trying to change for the better. As she spoke, she gently tugged at the brand new little outfit her baby was wearing. He earned the money to buy these clothes for her. He even bought a set for me. But I couldn't bear to wear it just yet. Her mother looked at Zhou Yao's fair, youthful face, which was now flushed with a rosy glow she hadn't seen in a long time. Her eyes looked like they had regained their spark. She couldn't help but be taken aback. Just yesterday, she had accidentally overheard Ermazi from next door saying that he owed someone 50 yuan. That's such a huge debt, and he never does any honest work. How on earth is he going to pay it back? That was exactly why she was so worried, and why she had rushed over with groceries first thing in the morning. But looking at her daughter's expression, she clearly wasn't faking it. Realizing this, she decided not to tell her daughter what she had heard. She was afraid it would cause another fight between the two of you. Pulling her thoughts together, her eyes reddened, and she gave a comforted nod. As long as he's willing to change, that's what matters. Now Mom can finally stop worrying. As she spoke, she raised a hand to wipe a stray tear from the corner of her eye. Right now, you've just headed up the mountain, munching on a multigrain steamed bun. calculating roughly how much money it would take to build a 2-story house these days. Based on the current price of the wild orchids you can dig up, even after building the house, you'd still have a very impressive amount of savings for this era. After all, in this day and age, there aren't many households sitting on 10,000 yuan. Knowing you'll definitely be living in the village for the next couple of years, you decide to upgrade your living conditions first. The 3 broken down dirt rooms your family is living in now. Once you walk inside, with your height, you feel like you can't even stand up straight. Plus, it's incredibly dusty inside. Dirt crumbles from the ceiling everywhere. It's really no place for a human to live. At this moment, you have absolutely no idea that your mother-in-law is currently discussing with your wife whether or not she should divorce you. If you knew about this, you probably wouldn't even be in the mood to go up the mountain and dig for herbs right now. After all, having been reborn for a second chance at life, making money is incredibly important to you. But absolutely nothing is more important than your wife and kids. Armed with the money-making secrets from your previous life, you naturally aren't in a rush to get rich overnight. Seeing that it's almost noon, Mother Joe didn't even bother to stay for lunch, rushing to head back home. She was terrified that if she took even one extra bite, her daughter would have one less bite to eat. Zhou Yao couldn't stop her, so she simply took down the meat hanging in the kitchen. She sliced off a huge chunk of it, grabbed it, and chased after her. "Mom, take this back for my brother and sister-in-law to eat." Seeing such a massive piece of meat, Mother Joe immediately waved her hands, refusing to take it. She was terrified that if you found out your wife was secretly giving food to her maiden family, you would beat her daughter again. And she was even more worried that her daughter wouldn't have enough to eat and would suffer. "You keep it for yourselves. We aren't starving back home. Just look at how skinny you are. You're nothing but skin and bones. You need to eat better. Otherwise, how are you going to produce enough milk for the baby?" Mother Joe ultimately refused to take the meat. She slung her basket over her arm and slowly walked away. Zhou Yao stood at the door, helplessly watching her mother walk further and further away. It wasn't until her mother was completely out of sight that she finally turned around and carried the meat back into the kitchen. The neighbor, Zhang Gilan, was about the same age as Zhou Yao, but she had married into the village 2 years earlier. She had a dark complexion and was gnawing on a raw radish in her hand. Leaning over the shared wall, she called out, "Hey girl, you stay cooped up inside all day. But the word is out. Your second brother beat the living daylights out of your second sister-in-law last night." Half the neighborhood heard her screaming and crying. Zhou Yao, who had just walked out of the kitchen, sat down on a stool in the yard, giving a half-hearted response. Seeing that she wasn't saying much, Zhang Gilan pulled up a stool and sat down right in front of her wash basin. She lowered her voice to a whisper. "Everyone is saying that your second brother's oldest boy isn't actually his." Hearing this, Zhou Yao immediately stopped what she was doing and looked up at Zhang Gilan. "He's your oldest brother's kid." Catching the sheer confusion in Zhou Yao's eyes, Zhang Gilan shoved her half-eaten radish into her pocket and leaned in, whispering the juicy gossip right into her ear. Zhou Yao was absolutely dumbfounded. She couldn't believe something so messed up could actually happen. She used to really respect her oldest brother. She always thought of him as a loyal and honest man, someone who played fair and really acted like a proper older brother. But after hearing this dirty secret, she couldn't help but feel deeply unsettled. How could things turn out like this? Zhang Gilan seemed pretty pleased with her reaction. She patted the young wife from the city. "All right now, I gotta head home and cook for my man. I won't keep chatting with you." That night, you came back pretty late. On your way back this time, you could see the lights shining at home from way off in the distance. You couldn't help but marvel to yourself, this electric light really is way brighter than those old kerosene lamps. Seeing you return, Zhou Yao quickly grabbed the warm dishes and white flour steamed buns from the pot, brought them out to you, and casually asked, "Why are you back so late today?" Noticing the mud on your clothes, she set down the food and started dusting you off. You quickly stopped her, turned around to bolt the main room's door, and then dug something out from the straw in your dish basket. You carefully placed it on the table. "I dug up some dendrobium and stumbled upon an unexpected catch on my way back." You didn't tell your wife that you actually found the thing because you slipped and took a bad fall down a slope. Climbing back up took a ton of effort, which was why you were back so late. The price for this stuff isn't any lower than dendrobium right now. It's all sold by the gram. It was a total stroke of luck, snagging us a nice little windfall. You figured you'd spend some quality time getting cozy with your wife tonight, and skip heading up the mountain tomorrow. You'd go get rid of the goods on hand first. Zhou Yao stared at the dark brown lump you placed on the table. Shaped somewhat like a chunk of ginger, she felt like she'd seen it in a book before. With a hint of uncertainty, she asked, Is this fleece flower root?" Her tone was filled with disbelief. You really didn't expect your wife to be so well read. Most of the folks in the village still had no clue just how precious this stuff was. Otherwise, with all those treasures up on the mountain, they'd have been picked clean ages ago. Things like dendrobium and fleeceflower root would stay highly valuable for about 10 more years. After that, once farming technology improved, they could all be grown artificially, and you'd see them everywhere on the market. They wouldn't be rare anymore, but even when that happened, the prices for rare, wild-grown herbs would still be absolutely outrageous, simply because you couldn't buy the wild ones anywhere. You flashed a huge, bright smile, and pulled your lovely little wife right into your arms. Dipping your head, you planted a kiss on her soft, pale cheek. Meeting her sparkling eyes, you said, "That's right, it really is fleeceflower root. Tomorrow, I'm taking you and the baby out for a stroll in the city." Hearing that he wanted to take the baby out, Zhou Yao's body suddenly went completely stiff. She remembered what he had said before, about selling their daughter to a family in the city who couldn't have kids. Her heart was still sick with worry over it. Who knew if they truly couldn't have kids, or if they were just buying her to be a child bride? She pulled herself out of his embrace, filled with guarded panic, and rejected him. "Our baby girl is still too little. We aren't going. You should go wash your hands and eat." You were sharp enough to immediately notice something was off with her. You had genuinely just wanted to take her out for a walk, and maybe buy her some nice winter clothes while you were at it. But seeing her suddenly on edge like this, it was obvious she was terrified you were plotting against your daughter again. After all the absolutely awful, bastardly things you'd done in the past, how could she possibly let her guard down so easily? You had completely burned through her trust a long time ago. You'd just have to take it slow. You stripped off your mud-splattered shirt, pushed the door open, and stepped outside. You quickly washed your face, then headed back inside and sat down. Only then did you take a good look at the dinner table. A plate of golden scrambled eggs, and a small dish of leftover stir-fried pork from the morning. Had she really not eaten any of the meat for lunch? If she keeps scrimping and saving like this, when will I ever get some meat on her bones? Looks like I need to hustle and make more money fast, just so she can finally feel secure. Honey, where'd these eggs come from? Zhou Yao looked down as she ladled you a bowl of flour soup. My mom stopped by right after you left. She brought them. She didn't breathe a single word about her mother bringing up divorce. Hearing they were from your mother-in-law, you suddenly remembered hounding her for drinking money in the past. A wave of shame washed over you. Too embarrassed to face her, you didn't even dare ask why your mother-in-law had come. Instead, you started figuring things out in your head. Once you sold the stuff on hand tomorrow, the first thing you'd do is pay back the money you took from her. You reached out and pulled your wife closer. Making her sit down, you said, "Come on, eat up." You handed her a multigrain bun as you spoke. She still couldn't bring herself to use the pure white flour, so she had mixed it half and half to make these buns. You grabbed a rough cornmeal bun for yourself and started wolfing it down. Zhou Yao took a tiny bite of her bun, looking up to steal a cautious glance at the man sitting in front of her. If only he could stay like this forever, she thought. I just don't know how long this sudden change of heart will last. Right as the two of you were eating, someone started shouting at the door. "Hey, bro, it's me, your boy. Come on out. We need one more for a game. The guys are waiting on you to deal the cards and pop some bottles." The moment Zhou Yao heard that voice, all the color instantly drained from her face. She just stared at you, wide-eyed and paralyzed. She was terrified you were going to fall right back into your old ways, running off with them to drink and gamble your life away. Hearing that voice, you froze for a second. As soon as you realized who it was, you put down your chopsticks and looked up. Only to see your wife's pale, trembling face. You shot up instantly and pulled her tight against your chest. "Sweetheart, what's wrong? Are you hurt?" Your voice was laced with pure, raw panic. Tucked into your embrace, Zhou Yao gripped the fabric of your tank top tightly with her slender, pale fingers. Her lips quivered as she whispered, Are you going out to drink and gamble with them again?" Hearing those words, it finally hit you why she was reacting this way. She was terrified you were going to relapse into your old habits. Resting your chin gently on her soft hair, your arms instinctively wrapped around her, pulling her even tighter against you. The body trembling in your arms was so devastatingly fragile. Ever since she married you, she hadn't lived a single good day. Even having a full stomach had become a luxury. And yet, despite all of it, she was still holding out hope for you. She still just wanted to build a quiet, steady life with you. You took a deep, shaky breath, forcing back the burning tears pricking at your eyes, and comforted her with a low, husky voice. "Shush, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I'm gonna go tell them to get lost right now. I'm done messing around with those losers for good." Still in your arms, Zhou Yao looked up at you the moment you said that. Her eyes searched yours intensely as she asked, "You're really not going?" You looked down, meeting her anxious, questioning gaze. God, you just wanted to rip your heart out and show it to her. Just to prove to her that you had truly turned over a new leaf. Unable to help yourself, you gently kissed the tip of her nose. And with your warm breath brushing against her, you swore, I'm really not going. Trust me, I'm gonna go tell them to screw off right now. You then gently eased her out of your embrace and back onto her stool. Alright. You keep eating, I'll be right back, okay? As you stood up straight, you glanced down and noticed that your tank top. Your hand was still being tightly held by your wife. If you didn't know that those 3 guys outside were nothing but trouble, you really would have brought her out with you. So she could watch you turn them down yourself. Just to give her some peace of mind, you lowered your head and planted another kiss on the top of her head to comfort her. Your large, rough, and warm hand gently patted her frail back. Only then did she slowly let go. You straightened up and strode away with strong, confident steps. When you reached the courtyard gate, you pulled the wooden door open. The guys waiting outside saw you, and that punk Luigi flashed a sleazy smirk. He cracked a dirty joke and said, Brother 4, that's really not cool of you. The missus hasn't even been out of her postpartum confinement for long, and you're already trapped inside. It's been days, you haven't even come out to grab a drink with the boys. Hearing his bullshit, your sharp brows furrowed with pure hostility. You growled in a deep voice, screw you. You better watch your damn mouth from now on. If you don't know how to speak properly, then keep it shut. The other 2 guys had been laughing along, but seeing the dark look on your face, they instantly dropped their smiles and rushed to smooth things over. Brother 4, you know him, he just doesn't have a filter. Don't stoop to his level. Come on, let's go. Let's go grab some drinks. He reached out, trying to throw an arm around your shoulder. You swatted his arm away and gave them a sidelong glare. Looking at the other 2, you snapped, if it's about drinking or playing cards, don't ever bother coming to me again. I'm done with all that. Seeing you act like this, the 3 of them looked at you like they'd just seen a ghost. They stared at each other in absolute disbelief. But that punk Luigi still had that sleazy grin plastered on his face. With a complete death wish, he kept pushing it. Brother 4. Is the little missus keeping you on such a tight leash that you can't even leave the house? I mean, since she's already done with her confinement, just come have a drink with us bros. Before he could even finish his sentence, you kicked him right in the chest. You sent him flying onto his back, groaning on the ground. You strode over and stomped your foot right between the bastard's legs. Bending down, your dark eyes flashed with a ruthless glint as you stared straight at the scum. Next time you dare talk shit, I'll sew both your upper and lower mouths shut. And I'll break your 3rd leg while I'm at it. As you spoke, you pressed your foot down even harder. The punk lay on the ground, completely ignoring the pain in his chest. He desperately grabbed your big foot resting on his crotch, howling and screaming at the top of his lungs. 4th brother, I'm sorry, I'll never talk shit again. The other 2 guys next to him were scared out of their wits, speechless for a long time. You radiated a murderous aura, looking absolutely terrifying in the dead of night. Nobody even dared to step up and stop the fight. They'd been terrified of you since they were kids. When you fought, you were a ruthless bastard who didn't care about his own life. But today was a first. Seeing you get this angry, you looked just like a starving tiger ready to eat someone alive. It sent shivers down their spines. You were worried the punk's howling would attract your wife's attention. You didn't want your wife to see your violent side and scare her. If she gets scared of me again over this stupid mess, I'm completely screwed. You straighten up, glaring down at the punk on the ground. You pull your foot back. Get lost. The other 2 look like they've just been pardoned, scrambling to drag the punk to his feet. They call out to you, 4th brother, we'll be going now. As soon as the 3 of them are gone, you drop your intimidating aura. You step into the courtyard and slide the latch on the door. Inside, Zhou Yao has been completely on edge ever since you stepped out. Sitting on pins and needles, every single second feels like pure torture to her. Seeing that you haven't come back for ages, her heart just about sinks to the bottom. Her stomach is rumbling with hunger, but staring at the hot food on the table without you there. She just can't bring herself to eat a single bite. In just these past few days, watching you slowly change for the better, without even realizing it. She's started holding on to hope for you again. She doesn't expect you to strike it rich. She just wants you to settle down and live a quiet life. But if you run off to drink and gamble again, what is she supposed to do? The baby is still so little. There's no way she can take the baby out to work with her. Would she really have to get a divorce? Just as she's lost in thought, she hears the sound of steady footsteps. Her eyes immediately dart toward the sound. She sees your tall silhouette stepping in from the moonlight. In that instant, her dull, lifeless eyes completely light up. You really didn't go fool around with those bastards. While she's still staring blankly, you're already standing right behind her. You lean down, wrapping her in your broad chest, and press a kiss to your wife's soft cheek. What's wrong? Your man just steps out for a second. And you don't recognize me anymore? You tease, handing her the chopsticks. You sit down at the table, grab a cornmeal bun, and start devouring it. Zhou Yao still can't quite process it all, blurting out without thinking. Are you really done messing around with them for good? Reporting to the boss lady, I am completely done with them. I'm never hanging out with them again. Only then does Zhou Yao nod. She slowly starts eating her food. During the meal, she keeps stealing glances at her man. She watches you eat so fast. But your table manners aren't bad at all. Paired with your sharp, handsome face, it's actually pretty nice to look at. Back when she married you, aside from the fact that you saved her life, part of the reason was because you were so damn handsome. She was completely swept off her feet by your looks, and with the arranged marriage swap for her younger brother on top of that. That's how she ended up marrying a dirt poor guy like you. You notice your wife staring blankly at you, wondering what's going through that pretty little head of hers. You place a piece of golden, fluffy egg on her bun, flashing a smirk as you tease, "Wifey, hurry up and eat, I'll let you stare all you want when we get to bed." Your shameless teasing snaps Zhou Yao back to reality. Seeing your smug, playful grin, she shoots you a fierce glare, blushing hard as she ducks her head to focus on her food. Now full, you're in no rush to leave. You lounge back on the rickety little stool, staring straight at your wife. The more you look at her, the more you adore her. Even though times are incredibly tough right now and the food is terrible. She didn't wear any makeup, but her skin was still so incredibly smooth and flawless. Way prettier than those celebrities with their cosmetic injections. You noticed that your wife's knuckles were bright red as she held her chopsticks. So you gently grabbed her slender wrist and pulled her hand closer to take a look. Thinking about the bedsheets drying outside, you plan to sell your goods tomorrow and get a washing machine ration coupon from the black market. Back in those days, a lot of people didn't even know what a washing machine was, let alone be willing to spend money on one. But with a washing machine, your wife wouldn't have to wash clothes by hand anymore. Zhou Yao pulled her hand back, feeling incredibly shy under your intense gaze. If you're full, go boil some water and take a bath. You're covered in mud. You stood up, gave your wife a sweet kiss on the cheek, and headed to the kitchen to boil the water. After you left, Zhou Yao put down her chopsticks and touched her burning cheeks. Ever since last night, this man had been so affectionate, hugging her constantly and sneaking in kisses every now and then. Every time he got close, she could smell that strong, masculine scent on him, making her heart pound wildly in her chest like a frightened little rabbit. She couldn't even understand what was going on with herself. After dinner, you took Zhou Yao by the hand, saying you wanted to take her out for a walk to help digest the food. On the way back, you didn't head straight home, but led Zhou Yao in a different direction instead. Next to the cowshed stood a rundown mud hut, with a simple, makeshift dirt stove set up outside. The woman inside clutched her chest, coughing violently as she grabbed a small handful of cornmeal and mixed it with water. She poured it into a chipped ceramic pot. Just taking those few steps made huge drops of sweat break out on her face, rolling down her forehead. Zheng Chouxin, a man with graying hair, walked over with long strides from a distance. He frowned, took the water dipper from her, and told her to go back inside and lie down properly, saying he would do the cooking. The woman looked at him as he handed her half a flatbread he had traded for. "We got pretty lucky today. Managed to trade for a whole flatbread. I already ate half of it, and brought the rest back for you. Hurry up and eat, you'll recover faster if you eat." "You really ate?" The man didn't hesitate for a single second, adding a handful of rice to the pot before squatting down to start the fire. He replied, "Yeah, I ate." The woman thought about her weak condition, and tried to hand the flatbread back. "I'm really not hungry, you should have it all. I've just been lying in bed all day, so I just want some thin porridge." The man kept his head down, adding wood to the fire. "I told you to eat it, so eat it. How are you gonna get better if you don't eat?" He kept his head lowered, his eyes burning with unshed tears. If they ate until they were full today, what on earth would they eat tomorrow? He completely ignored his own well-being. That tiny bit of rice was something he had practically begged from several villagers. Her heart ached knowing he had worked all day without eating, and his heart ached that she had to suffer out here in the countryside with him. He gently held her hand. "Stop worrying so much, just focus on resting and getting better. I'll go find some medicine for you tomorrow. You'll definitely be cured." Watching all of this left Zhou Yao with a heavy heart. On the way back home, she asked you about the couple's situation. You stayed silent for a moment, wondering how you should even explain it. Should you tell her that the man was someone you didn't really know, but had actually seen on TV in your past life? The old man had dominated the business world for years. After he passed away, he donated his entire fortune. He set up a medical charity foundation in his beloved wife's name. His life's biggest regret was failing to protect her, watching helplessly as she died in agony from illness. Based on your memories, you guessed that the illness that killed his wife was probably this very one. However, you figured that Madame Yin's illness was mostly caused by severe malnutrition, living in a drafty cowshed, surviving on nothing but watery soup every day. Even the smallest ailment could turn into a deadly disease. You planned to have your wife, who was a high school graduate, take the medicine, along with some food and money, to invest in this future big shot. At the very least, she'd have a tutor before the college entrance exams resumed. Early the next morning, before the sky even lit up, you opened your eyes. You quietly got out of bed and walked over to the crib. You carefully picked up your daughter and gently laid her down next to your wife. After tucking her in nicely and cooking breakfast for your wife, you closed the door from the outside and headed out. Today was market day. Even though it was still early, there were already quite a few people on the road. In this day and age, if a family in the village had a heavy-duty bicycle, they were considered pretty well off. So, most folks still had to rely on their own two legs to get around. Relying on your memories from your past life, you easily found that relatively large traditional medicine shop. The middle-aged man with a square face took one look at what you brought out and looked you up and down. Then he picked up the herbs and inspected them closely, seeing that it was actually premium wild dendrobium. With every single stem perfectly intact, he couldn't help but feel a little shocked. He carefully placed the herbs back on the counter and asked cautiously, "How much are you looking to sell this for?" Hearing him ask for your price, you didn't hold back and just threw out a number. You knew damn well he was going to try and haggle. Sure enough, the moment the pharmacy manager heard your asking price, he knew exactly what he was dealing with. Realizing you weren't someone to be easily fooled, he took one look at your basket and invited you right into the backyard. The two of you haggled out back for almost an hour. In the end, you took the 2 stalks of dendrobium, along with the fleece flower root and deer antler, and sold them all to him. You were pretty thrilled with the price today. Clutching 50 crisp 10 yuan bills, you left the pharmacy. Now flush with cash, you headed straight to the state-run department store. You wanted to buy a washing machine, but when you asked the clerk, you were totally dumbfounded. You smacked your forehead. Even though washing machines existed right now, they were only used in hotels and laundromats. They hadn't made their way into regular homes yet. The very first domestically made washing machine wouldn't come out until 1978, so they weren't even in production yet. But to your surprise, you managed to score a ration coupon for a 9-inch black and white TV. You bought it without a second thought, along with a bunch of coupons for cooking oil, meat, and flour. Seeing a big spender like you, the black market dealer, Mr. GY, was overwhelmingly friendly. Hearing that you wanted to pick up the TV that very same day, Mr. GY helped you find a buddy with a tractor. For just $2, he could haul everything right to your village. You agreed without hesitation. After that, you went back into the state-run store and bought your wife a thick, bright red sweater, some nice pants, and leather shoes. You also picked out a few sets of brand new little outfits for the kid. You even grabbed a few fresh cotton quilts, buying basically everything you could possibly think of. It filled up a good half of the trailer. The tractor driver stared at you, completely dumbfounded. He just couldn't believe that this young guy in such shabby clothes was actually so loaded, buying so much stuff all in one go. By the time you finished your massive shopping spree, it was already afternoon. Meanwhile, back at home, Zhou Yao had woken up that morning to find the kid sleeping soundly right next to her. You had already slipped out, God knows when. Dragging her heavy, aching body, Zhou Yao finally got out of bed. She noticed that before you left so early, you had already prepared the food perfectly. Sitting on the table were bright, golden eggs and chunks of meat, still sizzling with oil. If Zhou Yao said she didn't feel a flutter of emotion in her heart, she'd be lying. Right around noon, Wang Shenju walked in, leading a fresh-faced, pretty young woman. Coming through the door, he called out, "Hey, fourth brother's wife. This is Li Tianxian, an educated youth sent down from the city. She's gonna be staying at your place from now on. Just tell your husband to clear out a room for her." Zhou Yao was completely caught off guard. A young woman suddenly moving into their home? How on earth were they supposed to fit in these 3 tiny mud brick rooms? The couple slept in one. The main room was for eating, and the last one was piled high with random junk. Where exactly was she supposed to sleep? Village head, he's not home right now. I can't really make this decision on my own. Wang Shenju just smiled, the wrinkles on his face bunching all together, and waved off Zhou Yao's concerns. Not listening to her at all, he turned and gave the educated youth a few quick instructions. Then, he just walked right out the door. Honestly, if it wasn't for the fact that the boy had gifted him that nice cut of meat, there was no way he would have assigned such a pretty, sweet young girl to stay at his place. When this batch of educated youths came down to the village, there were 20-something people in total. Most of them were young, strapping lads. She was the only delicate little lady of the bunch, and he had specially arranged for her to be placed right here. Since the young couple lived there, sending a girl over was way better than sending a boy. Having a young girl around at night wasn't awkward, and more importantly, they wouldn't have to worry about some guy making eyes at his pretty young wife. Left behind, Li Tianxian clutched her canvas satchel, looking around at these three rundown little. Looking at the rundown mud house, her heart was filled with dread. The days ahead would probably be much harder to endure than for any of the other sent-down youths. The family Hong Mei was assigned to seem to be living a pretty comfortable life. They were a middle-aged couple with 3 kids. All of them dressed so nicely. On the way here, she had heard people talking that the man of the house she was assigned to was absolutely no good. He drank, gambled, and even beat his wife. The family was supposedly dirt poor, barely able to put food on the table. Before arriving, she thought they were exaggerating. But looking at it now, honestly, there wasn't a single lie in what they said. Only the hostess of this house, wearing torn and ill-fitting clothes, was incredibly beautiful and radiant. Her features were so delicate, she looked like she had stepped right out of a painting. She didn't look like a countrywoman at all. Zhou Yao noticed that gaze, carefully sizing her up. She looked down at herself, wearing old, patched-up clothes. Then she looked at the woman standing in front of her, dressed so fashionably in a breezy summer dress, white socks, and little leather shoes. So bright and glamorous, she pretended not to notice the scrutinizing gaze, and just said, "Go ahead and take a seat. That room is a total mess, filled with all sorts of junk. We'll have to wait for my husband to get back before we can clear out a space for you." With that, she turned and went inside, bringing out a thermos to pour the guest a bowl of water. She gave a somewhat awkward nod and sat down on the wooden bench in the yard. In her mind, she was plotting. She had to do whatever it takes to get her transfer notice back to the city as soon as possible. She didn't want to stay in this dump for another single day. Especially not living in the same house as a local thug. She'd have to be extra careful from now on. She couldn't let that scumbag take advantage of her. Zhou Yao had originally planned to just throw together something simple for lunch, but now that a new sent-down youth had arrived, she had to roll up her sleeves and start properly preparing a meal. Li Tianxian, figuring that she'd be living here from now on, and shouldn't just freeload, went over and washed her hands. She walked into the kitchen to help. "Sister-in-law, how about I tend to the fire?" As she stepped inside, she froze in her tracks. The old kitchen was actually surprisingly clean and tidy, and hanging right there from the beam was a huge slab of meat. Who said this family was starving? Starving people don't eat meat, let alone a piece this big. Zhou Yao, who was looking down kneading dough, heard Li Tianxian and looked up, saying, "You don't need to help. If you've got nothing else to do, could you just keep an eye on the baby out in the yard for me?" Hearing this, Li Tianxian nodded and stepped out of the kitchen. She walked over to the little crib and looked at the baby lying inside. The baby was as fair and clean as a little porcelain doll, looking absolutely adorable. She leaned over to playfully tease the baby, but deep down she was puzzled. This hostess was about the same age as her, and was so beautifully fair and striking. Why did she get married so young? And how on earth could she settle for such a worthless loser of a man? A literal street thug. Could it be that the creep forced her into it? Did she have no other choice but to marry him? Just the thought of it sent a wave of dread through Li Tianxian. The more she thought about it, the more terrified she became. She wondered if she should run to the village chief's house and beg him to reassign her somewhere else. Even an even poorer household would be fine, just as long as the man of the house was a decent person. In the kitchen, Zhou Yao was busy cooking. Little did she know that the educated youth outside was playing out such a huge drama in her head. Before long, a bowl of piping hot noodles was ready. Zhou Yao walked out carrying the bowl, and called out, "Hey, comrade. Come have a bowl of noodles first." Li Tianxian snapped back to reality. She stared at the big bowl of noodles on the table, with little drops of oil floating on top, and blanked out for a moment. She hurriedly said, "My name is Li Tianxian. You can just call me Tianxian from now on, sis." Zhou Yao nodded. She didn't say much else. In the afternoon, right around 4 o'clock, a tractor rumbled into the village. Following your directions, it stopped right at your front door. Zhou Yao, who was shucking corn in the yard, suddenly heard the commotion outside. She quickly put down her work, stood up, and walked over to the door. Just in time to see you nimbly hopping down from the tractor. She muttered to herself, how did he end up coming back on this chugging tractor? Before she could even ask what was going on, the tractor driver shouted at the top of his lungs. "Hey, young man, can your house even fit all this stuff?" Saying that, he walked from the front of the tractor around to the back, slowly edging the TV set toward the side. Terrified of damaging it, you dashed forward in a flash. You unloaded the TV from the vehicle, flashed a wide grin at the tractor driver, and said, There's gonna be plenty of room from now on. Standing right next to you, Zhou Yao was completely stunned by the scene playing out in front of her, asking blankly, "Did you actually buy all of this?" Her voice was absolutely filled with disbelief. So many things, and a TV on top of it? How much money and ration coupons did all this cost? Seeing your wife's fair and beautiful face staring back at you with wide, shell-shocked eyes, you stepped right up and gently stroked her cheek, knowing deep down that she was just heartbroken over the money. But honestly, you didn't care about this little bit of cash at all. You just wanted your wife to enjoy a good life with you from now on, and never let her suffer even a tiny bit again. You leaned in close to Zhou Yao's ear and whispered, "I'll explain everything to you later. You just stand off to the side for now, I don't want anything bumping into you. Let me get all this stuff unloaded first." Hearing your words, Zhou Yao shuffled over to the side like a wooden puppet, just watching piece after piece get unloaded from the vehicle, piling up into a little mountain. Oh, the sheer regret eating away at her heart. If she had known this was going to happen, she would have grabbed the baby and gone into the city right along with you. How much money is all this? How can he be so utterly reckless with our livelihood? Where on earth did he get the money and coupons? What ordinary family could ever afford a TV? Even the electricity bill alone is going to cost a fortune. What a total spendthrift. Meanwhile, standing over in the corner, Li Tianxian, who was cradling the little baby in her arms, was staring intensely at that tall young man with broad shoulders and long legs. So he was the village's infamous ruffian. She had originally assumed you were hideous and completely unrefined. She never in a million years expected you to have such striking, deep-set features. You were incredibly handsome. In all her life, she had rarely seen a man this good-looking. Just looking at you made her heart pound wildly in her chest. Now, Li Tianxian finally understood. No wonder a woman as stunning as Zhou Yao had gotten married so early. Turns out, this man was even better looking than that famous movie star, Wang Zhengang. Once everything was finally unloaded, you pulled 2 yuan from your pocket and handed it right to the tractor driver. The driver took the cash, waved back, and drove the tractor off. Then, you started hauling the stuff into the yard. Your wife tried to help, but you wouldn't even let her, telling her to just sit down and rest. You hadn't even noticed the strange woman standing in your house. Meanwhile, Zhao Zhengxing rushed over after hearing the rumors. Seeing that massive pile of stuff at his buddy's door, he was totally dumbfounded. Where the heck did this lazy bum get so much money to buy all this stuff? He's as poor as dirt, and there's absolutely nothing left in his house to sell. Did he actually sell his own kid? The very thought made Zhao Zhengxing pick up his pace. Dashing right up to the door, his eyes immediately landed on his little niece safely tucked in the young educated woman's arms. Only then did his heart finally settle down. Zhao Zhengxing didn't say a single word. He just put his head down and helped carry the goods into the yard. Staring at that heavy metal box, the one that magically showed pictures and played sound when plugged in, with static that looked like a bunch of fighting ants. It was so incredibly lively, exactly like watching a real movie. He curiously circled it a few times, way too intimidated to even reach out and touch it. He'd heard these things were insanely precious, costing several hundred yuan. So this was the television set those city folks were always bragging about. He never ever imagined that his own buddy would actually manage to bring one home. It was the only one in the entire village. After getting everything properly sorted, Zhao Zhengxing dragged you over to the yard gate and asked you, "Where did all this money come from?" You calmly pat your chest and say, "I got it all from hunting, selling the game on the black market." You keep the wild orchids a secret from your oldest brother, not because you don't trust him, but because they grow high up on steep cliffs. Even if you told him, he wouldn't be able to help much anyway. Plus, if word got out, it would completely ruin your way of making a living. You figure you'll wait until it warms up next spring, then take him and your second brother up the mountain to find some good spots to forage. You'll show them the ropes, and after that, how much they make is up to their own luck. Zhao Zhengxing wants to tell you to just focus on farming, but as he looks at his own flesh and blood, he sees a spark in your eyes. There's a sharp, profound look in them that he's never seen before. It's like you're a completely different person, making him your own big brother. Feel like he barely even knows you anymore. Seeing as it's rare for him to visit, you decide to let him in on your plan to build a house and ask for his help. Hearing that you'll pay him 1 yuan a day, Zhao Zhengxing takes a drag from his cigarette and says, "As long as you stop messing around, I'll do it for free. I don't need your money. But building a house is no joke, you know. It costs a fortune. I have the money, bro. And I'm paying you anyway. Even brothers need to keep their accounts clear. Do me a favor and find a skilled builder, and let's use high-quality materials. I want to move into the new place before winter hits." Zhao Zhengxing nods, assuming you just want to patch up those 3 old thatched huts. Little does he know, you have the guts to build a 2-story house. The reason you're dumping all this onto your brother is honestly because you are swamped, running yourself ragged. You figure you need to harvest all the medicinal orchids before winter arrives. If you stumble upon more wild herbs like fleece flower root, you can sell those for cash too. And if you happen to run into a Sika deer, getting some deer antlers and the like would be an absolute jackpot. Seeing that it's still early in the day, the two of you decide to go see Wang Shenju. In this planned economy era, buying bricks for a house requires an official permit, and village chief Wang Xuanju's power during these times is basically absolute. You hand him a pack of Da Qianmen cigarettes and slip him a 1 yuan bill. Just like that, you smoothly get the permit for the bricks. Permit in hand, you head straight to the commune's brickyard to order the bricks for the house. Zhao Zhengxing is completely baffled. How many bricks do you even need? Number 4. How thick are you planning to make these walls? Why are you ordering so many? When you tell him you're building a 2-story house, Zhao Zhengxing watches you pull out 2 crisp 10 yuan notes and hand them to the brickyard boss without even blinking. He winces, his heart aching at the expense, and then he hears you say that you'll pay the rest of the balance once the bricks are delivered to the house. Zhao Zhengxing's eyes bulge out of his head. He can hardly believe what's happening. Those were 10 yuan notes, not toilet paper, just casually stuffed into your pocket. Aren't you afraid of losing them? He realizes that his degenerate gambler of a little brother now carries himself with incredible authority in front of strangers. You look more like a boss than the brickyard director himself. Just standing there, you have this natural, commanding presence. If you put on a nice blue tunic without any patches, people would believe you were the son of some high-ranking official. Honestly, if it weren't for the dark mole on your neck and the knife scar on your hand from your old brawling days, Zhao Zhengxing would seriously suspect that his little brother had been secretly replaced. On the way home, Zhao Zhengxing felt like he was floating, his head spinning. Sure, it was his 4th brother, but why did everything still feel so weird? As you neared the house, you pulled out 5 10 yuan bills from your jacket pocket and handed them over. Big brother, aside from the wood, I'll have to trouble you to help me get the rest of the materials. Zhao Zhengxing reached out to take it, but feeling his hands were a bit dirty, he rubbed them on the hem of his shirt. Only then did he take the money. He carefully tucked the cash into his inner shirt pocket, terrified of losing it by accident. Zhao Zhengxing looked at you earnestly and said, "This is so much money. Since you trust your big brother, I'll definitely get this done beautifully for you." You nodded. "You're my own flesh and blood. Why wouldn't I trust you? If you and sister-in-law hadn't taken care of things back then, with all the grievances my wife suffered in my past life, my little girl might not even have been born. I would have ruined everything myself." In the main room of the Zhao family house, Zhou Yao was tidying up the things you had bought. She dug out a square cloth from the cabinet and draped it meticulously over the TV, deathly afraid that a speck of dust might dirty it. If you asked her, "Why even buy this thing? The village lost power all the time, and you had to set up an antenna. When there was no signal, the screen was just a mess of static." But seeing how excited you were, she couldn't bring herself to scold you for wasting money. She noticed you had bought even more things for her and their daughter. There were women's sweaters, pants, and leather shoes, as well as a few outfits for the little one. That coat you bought for her in town last time. She hadn't even worn it yet, too reluctant to use it. And now you had actually bought her all these clothes. Still, seeing how much you cared for the mother and daughter, Zhou Yao was deeply touched. She picked up the soft, thick cotton quilt, ready to put it into the trunk, and couldn't stop her tears from falling. This was even nicer than the freshly fluffed cotton quilt she had when she got married. Once everything was put away, Zhou Yao realized that her man hadn't bought a single thing for himself. His shirt was still covered in patches, and his shoes even had holes in them. Li Tianxian, who was helping hold the baby girl, was staring hungrily at those new clothes, itching with envy. She looked just like a cat eyeing a fish. That V-neck sweater was the trendiest style in the city. She had wanted to buy one herself when she visited the department store, but her parents flat out refused. Spending half a month's salary on a sweater? Seeing the clothes she desperately wanted but couldn't afford appearing right here, and more than just one piece, Li Tianxian was absolutely eaten alive by jealousy. Zhou Yao's man was so incredibly handsome, and he was so incredibly generous with his wife. Plus, he was so sweet to her. When they were moving things just now, he wouldn't let her lift a finger. He was terrified she'd get tired, treasuring her like the apple of his eye. How could the village spread rumors that such a good man was a lazy, gambling loser? It was complete and utter nonsense. You took long, confident strides through the door from outside, and spotted a young woman you didn't recognize, standing there holding your baby. She was smiling warmly at your wife. "Is this a friend of yours?" Catching your gaze, Li Tianxian lowered her eyes slightly, not daring to meet your stare. Even though she prided herself on being a city girl, and had always looked down on these country bumpkins, ever since this man rode in on that tractor. Covered in dust from the road, even though he was just standing off to the side. His eyes and his heart were completely focused on his little wife. She was a living, breathing person standing right here. He hadn't even glanced her way once from start to finish. Zhou Yao had been busy with her chores, and only realized what was going on when she heard you ask. There was a stranger in the house. That educated youth had been keeping completely quiet, and Zhou Yao was so caught up in putting away all the stuff you bought that she completely forgot the girl was even there. Feeling a bit guilty, Zhou Yao quickly took the baby from Li Tianshan's arms and turned to you, saying, "This is an educated youth. The village head brought her over. He said she wants to stay with us for a bit. What do you think about tidying up the west room and clearing it out for her?" Her voice was full of hesitation, clearly asking for your permission. Even though you told her she was the boss of the house, she still didn't dare make the call on her own. Terrified of doing something wrong, when you heard a stranger wanted to stay in your house, you couldn't help but frown. You really didn't want an outsider intruding on the cozy life you had with your wife. But when you saw that hopeful look in her eyes, you swallowed back the rejection. You were so afraid she'd think you were dismissing her feelings. Without saying a word, you pulled your wife into the back room. You took off your jacket, pulled out the leftover money from selling the herbs from your hidden pocket, and handed it to her. Then, you took the baby from Zhou Yao's arms, teasing the little one as you told her about your plans to build a new house. Zhou Yao took the money, staring at the stack of crisp, 10 yuan bills in her hands. She couldn't believe her eyes. You bought so much stuff, and there's still this much left over? Just 2 stalks of wild orchids, a fleeceflower root, and whatever those deer antlers were. They were worth that much? When you mentioned wanting to build a house, Zhou Yao quickly gathered up the cash. Under your warm gaze, she carefully tucked the money safely away, then fell silent for a moment. If they didn't build a house, the money from these 2 trips would be more than enough to keep their family of 3 fed and clothed for years. They could live so comfortably. But if they actually built a house, this money wouldn't even be close to enough. They'd end up drowning in debt. Her younger brother had already helped them out so much over the past 2 years. And now that he had his own kid to feed, how could she possibly ask him for another loan? As Zhou Yao was agonizing over this, you seemed to read her mind. You suddenly leaned in and planted a kiss on her soft cheek. "Honey, don't you worry about the money. You've got me. Just stay home and rest up. Don't go exhausting yourself." That sudden, warm, and soft kiss on her cheek made Zhou Yao blush bright red in an instant. She shot you a shy, fluttery glare and whispered, "What are you doing? There's someone outside. Have you no shame?" But you were as thick-skinned as ever, just grinning back at her. After all, in your past life, you were a wealthy man who had seen it all. Without a word, you leaned in again, lowering your head to capture her soft, rosy lips. For a gentle, teasing bite, looking at your wife's flushed, pink cheeks, your heart just completely melted. You're already a mother. How are you still so shy? Deciding to give her a break, you got back to business. "My brother is ordering the building materials tomorrow. If he doesn't have enough and comes to ask for cash, don't forget to give it to him." Zhou Yao silently nodded, but she felt a bit uneasy inside. She thought about what the next-door neighbor had said, about the eldest brother and the second sister-in-law. Seeing the eldest brother again just made her feel really awkward. You quickly noticed that your wife looked a bit off. You leaned in close, right next to her cheek, and asked, "What's wrong, honey? Don't keep things bottled up inside." Zhou Yao thought for a second, but just shook her head. She didn't say a word. Seeing that your wife didn't want to talk about it, you didn't push it any further. Over in the main room, Li Tianshan was standing there, vaguely hearing Zhou Yao's reminder that there was someone else outside. Her face turned as red as a tomato. She stepped lightly into the middle of the yard, breathing in the fresh air. As if guided by some unseen force, she stopped herself from going to the village chief to ask for a room change. The man of this house didn't seem nearly as awful as the villagers made him out to be. Just now, when the young wife was sorting through the things, she had been standing right there holding the baby. She saw it plain as day. Most of those items were for the house, along with clothes for the baby and the wife. Yet, she didn't see a single thing meant for the man himself. While Li Tianshan was standing in the yard spacing out, the little girl rocking in your arms had already fallen fast asleep. Her delicate, doll-like face looked so peaceful. You gently turned around and softly laid the sleeping little princess onto the bed, carefully pulling the blanket over her. After that, Zhou Yao walked out of the room and said to Li Tianshan, "You'll have to rough it a bit tonight. Just make do for now. There's a lot of stuff piled up in the west room, and my husband might not be able to clear it all out right away." Hearing Zhou Yao's words, Li Tianshan turned her head and saw Zhou Yao's cheeks looking totally flushed. She couldn't help but think about the couple's conversation she had overheard from their room earlier. Her own face felt hot, and she quickly looked away. "It's no trouble at all. Sorry to bother you and your husband," Li Tianxian quickly replied. Zhou Yao smiled, shook her head, and said to her, "As long as you don't mind our poor home, it's fine." Saying that, she bent down. She wanted to move our daughter's little wooden bed to the east room. Seeing this, you quickly rushed over to help. Zhou Yao just smiled, and turned to go to the west room, wanting to help tidy up there too. You were working shirtless, but your wife kept insisting, so you had no choice but to throw on a white tank top. Your well-defined, muscular arms were left exposed. Exuding raw strength, the tank top covered your broad back, hiding those scratches of varying depths. You were completely clueless as to why your wife made you wear it. You just shouldered a few bamboo hurdles, planning to carry them out to the yard. You had barely started when you saw your wife coming in with her sleeves rolled up. You quickly stopped her. "Honey, you don't need to help with this. It's way too dusty in here. Hurry up and wait out in the yard." As you said that, you saw Zhou Yao wasn't listening. Feeling anxious, you dropped the bamboo hurdles and gently pushed her out. Your heart just ached for her. With all this thick dust, how could you ever let her step in to help? If it weren't for the fact that you'd be building a house soon, with a bunch of burly men constantly going in and out, you never would have let that female city youth stay at your place. But then again, letting Li Tianxian stay had its perks. Whenever you went up the mountain to hunt and gather wild herbs, so she could chat with your wife and help her pass the time. Seeing you push Zhou Yao out, Li Tianxian couldn't help but cover her mouth and tease with a smile. "Sister-in-law, my big brother really dotes on you." Haha. Hearing Li Tianxian's words, Zhou Yao's face flushed red, and she gave a shy little smile without saying a word. This man had truly changed. As long as he was at home, he wouldn't let her lift a single finger to do any chores. Even the hot water for her evening sponge bath, he would boil it and bring it right into the room for her. These past few days, she really felt like she was being carefully pampered. It was just too good, so much so that it all felt a bit unreal. She was even a little on edge. Zhou Yao was terrified that once your novelty wore off, you'd revert to your old self. It made her live every single day filled with anxiety, constantly worrying about losing what she had. Her mind was now in a constant state of high tension every day, greedily hoping this wonderful life would last just a little bit longer. That was why she was extra cautious with everything she said and did. Terrified of making you upset. During mealtimes, watching him hand the white flour steamed buns over to her, while he eagerly gnawed on the coarse grain buns. He was obviously the one who used to complain about coarse grains tasting awful. And he was the one who asked her to make the white flour buns. Yet, once they were ready, he didn't take a single bite, leaving them all entirely for her. Honestly, she was fine with eating anything, as long as he could just settle down and live a normal life. If he stopped messing around outside, she'd be completely satisfied. Even now, Zhou Yao still couldn't figure it out. How did you suddenly become so good? It wasn't like he hadn't done stupid things while drunk before, only to hug her and apologize after sobering up. Kneeling on the ground and swearing to the heavens. Every time he sobered up from a drunken rampage, he really would restrain himself a bit. But that would only last for 2 or 3 days before he completely relapsed, and went right back out to fool around. She had never seen him act like he had these past few days. Cooking, boiling water, and even playing with the kids. He even bought a complete set of clothes and shoes for the little one. Zhou Yao's mind was as clear as a mirror, constantly reminding herself to stay wide awake, not to fall headfirst into this sweet, sweet whirlpool. Because what if she woke up from this dream later, and reality was nothing like this? What would she do then? But you had no idea about all these tangled thoughts in your wife's head. Seeing the sky getting dark, you finally finished tidying up the west room. That room was a mud tile house, always piled high with random junk, with nobody living in it. The newspapers plastered on the walls were as rotten as spider webs, crumbling the moment you touched them. Even though it was swept, it was still incredibly dusty inside. With quick hands, you set up a small bed out of wooden planks, considering it mission accomplished as per your wife's instructions. Seeing you walk out dripping with sweat, Zhou Yao hurriedly grabbed a towel and handed it to you. "Hurry and wipe your face. Dinner will be ready in a second." You didn't reach out to take it. Instead, your tall and lean body leaned forward slightly, bringing your magnified, rugged and handsome face right in front of your wife's. Exhaling hot breaths, you said, "Wifey, will you wipe it for me?" Hearing your words, Zhou Yao subconsciously glanced at Li Tianxian, who was carrying things into the house. Once she went inside, she stood on her tiptoes, reaching up to wipe the sweat off your forehead, not forgetting to remind you, "We have a guest in the house. From now on, when you get up to use the bathroom in the morning, stop walking around shirtless in just your boxer shorts." You'll make the poor girl blush. Your dark, bright, and soulful eyes just kept staring at the wife standing inches away from you, watching her wipe you down so carefully while nagging about every little detail. It made your heart feel all warm inside, even though it felt a bit weird not being allowed to go shirtless in your own home. It was a little awkward, but looking at your wife's dead serious expression, you couldn't help but smile, leaning in to leave a quick, teasing peck on Zhou Yao's rosy lips. After that sweet little kiss, you agreed without a second thought. Whatever you say, honey. Zhou Yao was completely caught off guard by your sudden affection. Her face turned bright red. It would be one thing if it was just the two of you at home, but there was an unmarried young woman staying with you. It was just too shameless. Blushing furiously, Zhou Yao scolded you. Stop dawdling. Hurry up, wash your hands and come eat. She spun around and hurried into the kitchen. Watching your wife run away like a startled deer, you couldn't help but grin. A deeply satisfied smile spread across your handsome face. You strolled over to the well, pulled up a bucket of cold water, and splashed it all over your face. You were covered in sweat, your skin feeling all hot and sticky. It was super uncomfortable. You glanced around the yard, and seeing you were totally alone, you yanked off your tank top. You lifted the bucket and poured the freezing cold water straight over your head. Ah, that felt amazing. But you had no idea that Li Tianxian had just stepped out of the house and saw exactly what you were doing. She stared at the shirtless man standing with his back to her, taking in your broad, muscular build. Your muscles were perfectly sculpted, every line sharp and defined, and there were even a few faint scratch marks on your back. Li Tianxian's cheeks burned instantly. Flustered and shy, she quickly turned around and darted back inside. Honestly, this crappy dirt house had zero soundproofing. It was dark, and there was dust absolutely everywhere. Li Tianxian felt like she couldn't stand living here for even one more day. Meanwhile, Zhou Yao heard all that loud splashing. She walked out carrying a plate of food, and her eyes went wide the second she saw you standing there completely shirtless and soaking wet. You looked like you'd just been fished out of a river. Instantly, a flash of anger flared up in her chest. She slammed the plate down on the stone table in the yard, marched right up to you, and grabbed your arm, dragging you back inside. As she pulled, she started scolding you. It's freezing out here. What are we gonna do if you catch a cold? You just let your wife drag you into the house. Listening to her nag, you didn't mind at all. In fact, it made you feel incredibly warm inside. You knew she was genuinely, deeply worried about you. Once you were in the bedroom, Zhou Yao grabbed one of the kids' little blankets. She stood up on her tiptoes, and gently, carefully started drying the water out of your hair. She was so incredibly focused, she didn't even blink. But her mouth definitely didn't stop scolding you. Lower your head, hurry up. She was completely oblivious to the fact that you were staring down at her with the biggest, goofiest lovesick smile on your face. Hearing your wife's orders, you quickly spread your long legs apart and obediently ducked your head, letting her wipe you down. Honey, why don't you put on those new clothes tomorrow? I really want to see how you look in them. The moment you said that, Zhou Yao's hands froze for a split second. She didn't say a word. Seeing that your hair was mostly dry, she stepped around behind you, slowly and carefully wiping away the water droplets on your back, inch by inch. But as she noticed the scratch marks on your back, her face flushed with sudden heat. She had never been that bold before. As the memories came rushing back, Zhou Yao's heart began to pound wildly in her chest. She practically threw the small blanket into your arms and blurted out, "Wipe the front yourself. Once you're all clean, put on a fresh pair of pants and come out to eat." Zhou Yao lifted the cloth curtain and walked out, bumping right into Li Tianxian, who was coming out of the west room. The two women shared a smile, both staying completely silent out of a mutual understanding. The three mud brick rooms were barely the size of a palm. Whatever was said in the east room made Li Tianxian feel so awkward she didn't know whether to sit or stand. She felt uneasy all over. If this had been at night, wouldn't she feel like she was being roasted over an open fire? Meanwhile, you changed your pants, threw on a gray button-up shirt, and strode out. You sat down on the stone stool right next to your wife, glancing over the stone table. The scrambled eggs from this morning were barely touched, and all 8 pieces of meat were still there. You furrowed your brows, staring at your wife. Did you not eat anything this morning? Zhou Yao had just picked up her chopsticks. Looking up, she saw your dark expression and furrowed brows. Her heart skipped a painful beat. Her hand trembled, and the chopsticks clattered onto the floor. She felt utterly crushed in that instant. Was he already showing his true colors again? She had actually hoped he would keep up the act a little longer this time. But the dream was already over. She quietly set down the other chopstick, avoiding your gaze completely. Taking a deep breath, she whispered, I had half a steamed bun and a couple pieces of egg." Her voice sounded calm, but her hands were gripping her worn-out jacket for dear life. She was trembling all over. The sudden clatter of the chopsticks hitting the floor snapped you right back to reality, and you immediately sensed that something was wrong. Looking closely, you saw that Zhou Yao's eyes were completely red and brimming with tears. Looking as fragile as a heart battered by the rain, your chest tightened, and a wave of panic washed over you. You were just heartbroken that she was too frugal to eat. Who would have thought your rough tone would end up terrifying her? You reached out, wanting to pull her into a hug, but she flinched and pulled away. That made you panic even more. You, a burly guy over 6 feet tall, suddenly squatted right down in front of your wife. With a face full of absolute dread, you called out, "Honey. I was just a little worried. I really didn't mean to snap at you." As soon as his tone softened, Zhou Yao couldn't hold back her hurt feelings anymore. Tears came streaming down her face. She was genuinely terrified just a moment ago. She thought you had turned back into that violent, abusive monster who used to hit her. Your heart ached like crazy. You scooped her up into your arms and quickly carried her into the east room. Li Tianxian had just sat down on the stone bench, looking completely lost. What on earth just happened? She was left all alone in the yard. Meanwhile, inside the room, you looked lovingly at the woman in your arms. Her eyes were all red from crying, and her cute little nose was flushed. It felt like a knife twisting in your chest. You leaned down, kissed her gently on her eyelids, and whispered softly, "Honey, I am so sorry. I was totally in the wrong. I was just so worried that you were starving yourself to save food. I panicked and snapped at you. I am out working all day long, so I can't always be there to make sure you eat. I just got anxious, and my tone came out way too harsh." Zhou Yao gradually felt a lot better, and even started to think she overreacted a little bit just now. Being so spoiled and protected by him lately had made her a bit sensitive. Now that everything was cleared up, she felt even more embarrassed. Her fair fingers gripped his shirt tightly, her eyes looking down, biting her lower lip without saying a single word. Right then, out of nowhere, you suddenly said, "Honey, what's going on here?" Following the direction he was pointing, Zhou Yao finally realized that she was leaking milk. Before she could even answer, you thought about the carp and tofu soup and the venison you had been making lately, and asked, "Is our little girl getting enough to eat these days?" Zhou Yao's fair face instantly turned bright red, just like a ripe tomato. She quickly slipped out of your embrace and turned her back to you. "Just get out for a second," she said, her voice trembling slightly. She had been drinking that carp soup every single day, and didn't expect it to actually work so well. For the past couple of days, the baby had been entirely breastfed, without needing any formula at all. But even so, she still had way too much milk. She was painfully engorged during the day, and last night, this shameless guy even drank some of it. That was the only reason she didn't feel so uncomfortable today, but she was still leaking. Blushing furiously, she kept her head down and started unbuttoning her shirt. She didn't even notice that you were staring right at her, watching her every move with eager, hungry eyes. Just as Zhou Yao slipped off her outer shirt, she finally realized that this shameless man was staring straight at her. She immediately felt a mix of embarrassment and anger. "What are you doing? Get out of here. I need to fix my clothes." But you had absolutely no intention of leaving. Instead, you leaned in even closer. "Honey, the baby is asleep, and you must be so uncomfortable being that full and sore. Let me help you out." Meanwhile, Li Tianxian was still sitting on the stone bench outside, resting her chin on her hand. It was already completely dark outside. The stars and the moon were already out, but the couple still hadn't emerged from the room. She didn't dare barge in to check on them, so she could only sit there and wait. After a very long time, the two of them finally came out of the room. Li Tianxian couldn't help but notice that her young sister-in-law had moist eyes and deeply flushed cheeks. Her lips are flushed and bright red. He must have coaxed her out of her bad mood. Seeing Li Tianxian staring at her, Zhou Yao thought about what had just happened. Her face burned up. She sat down, grabbed some chopsticks, and handed them to Li Tianxian. She handed another pair to the man beside her. "After you sat down, you didn't spare Li Tianxian a single glance the whole time. You just placed a soft, white flour bun right into your wife's hand. Then, you grabbed a coarse grain bun for yourself and took a massive bite, thinking about finding some time to visit the reservoir to catch a few carp to nourish your wife." But how could Zhou Yao know what her man was thinking? Worried that Li Tianxian might feel awkward, she handed her a white bun. "Eat up, don't be shy. Just make yourself at home." Li Tianxian took a tiny bite, whispering in her mind, "Is this family actually poor or rich? If they're poor, well, they're eating fine white buns. And the dishes are scrambled eggs and pork. Even city folks don't have it much better." Just this morning, the village chief's family was eating dark corn buns with pickled radishes. But if they're rich, they live in a 3-room mud house. Besides the television they bought today, there isn't a single decent piece of furniture. That bed I'm sleeping on, as just a few wooden boards thrown together. When it was set up, she was terrified it would collapse if she just rolled over in the night. Oh, right, during the day, she heard him tell the tractor driver that he was going to build a new house. Doesn't that mean this old house will be torn down? When that happens, there won't even be a place to live. Then why did he insist on letting me stay? It's so obvious. This big brother only has eyes for his little wife. There's absolutely no room for anyone else. He clearly doesn't even want me living here. While her mind was racing, a baby's cry echoed from the room. The very next second, you stood up and told Zhou Yao to keep eating. You strode right into the room, flicked on the light, and scooped your crying daughter out of her little crib. Zhou Yao put down her chopsticks and reached out to take the baby. You dodged her hands. You eat first. I'm not hungry yet. I'll eat later. Zhou Yao naturally knew he was just saying that so she could eat first. After coming back from outside and spending all that time clearing out the clutter. How could he not be hungry? But she didn't expose his sweet little lie. She just picked up her chopsticks and kept eating. Li Tianxin lowered her eyes, taking tiny bites of her bun. Out of the corner of her eye, she secretly watched how this couple interacted, unconsciously comparing them to her own family. Whenever her two older brothers came home from working in the fields, they barely even touched their kids. Whenever the babies cried, it was always her sisters-in-law who had to coax them first, holding a baby in one hand while struggling to eat with the other. But this big brother right in front of her, he was pacing back and forth in the courtyard, gently rocking the baby. She found it absolutely unbelievable. Zhou Yao quickly finished her meal, took the baby from her man's arms, and headed back into the room. As soon as she left, Li Tianxin secretly peeked up, looking at the young man sitting across from her. She saw him taking huge bites of his bun stuffed with eggs, his handsome face completely expressionless. He gave off a cold, distant vibe. It was like he was a completely different person when his wife wasn't around. It gave Li Tianxin the creeps, making her fidget anxiously in her seat. Stuttering nervously, she said, "Big brother. I'm full." She gathered her bowl and chopsticks, hurrying them into the kitchen. After quickly washing them, she practically fled back to the west room, too scared to step outside again. The sky turned pitch black. You sat all alone in the courtyard. You ate the remaining 4 coarse grain buns and finished off the noodle soup before finally feeling full. After that, you boiled a pot of hot water and carried the wash basin back into the room. "Honey, make sure you wash up a bit. I'm going to run to the bathroom." You set the basin on the stand and stepped out. Zhou Yao closed the door behind you. She took off her clothes and started washing up with the hot water. Just as she finished and got dressed, she faintly heard a noise from behind the house. She thought she was just hearing things. But the next second, a man's voice came from outside. "Hey there, sweetie. Are you taking a bath in there?" Zhou Yao's hair stood on end, and she let out a piercing scream. Outside, you had just pulled up your pants when you heard her scream. You rushed out immediately and caught her just as she threw herself into your arms. Holding her tightly, you looked down and asked, "What's wrong?" Zhou Yao wrapped her arms tightly around your waist, her body trembling. Behind the house, there was someone out there just now. You raised your dark eyes. You looked toward the courtyard wall, and sure enough, you saw a man's head. He was scurrying away into the distance. In an instant, a terrifying rage filled your deep eyes. You pulled your gaze back, looking down at the woman in your arms, who was only wearing her underclothes. You scooped her up by the waist, and gently laid her down on the bed. Stepping out of the bedroom, you turned to Li Tianxin, who was standing by the door of the west room, and told her, "Keep an eye on her for me. I need to head out for a bit." You didn't say another word. Striding out of the yard, your tall, broad-shouldered figure vanished into the dead of night. Over at Erlaizi's house on the east end of the village, the next-door neighbors listened to his miserable, agonizing wails, along with the muffled, heavy thuds of fists raining down on his body. It was enough to make their hearts tremble in fear. Everyone knew you were a ruthless punk, a tough guy straight to the bone. They had no idea how Erlaizi had managed to piss you off so badly. Judging by the sound of the commotion, you were showing absolutely no mercy. They were genuinely terrified you were going to beat him to death. "Fourth brother, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was just going to peep on the educated youth, Li Tianxin. But I swear, I didn't see anything at all." Hearing Erlaizi's desperate pleas for mercy, you ruthlessly dislocated his jaw. "What kind of bullshit are you spouting? Weren't you just craving meat, so you went looking for a bite?" "Fourth brother, I was wrong." Erlaizi didn't even have the strength left to crawl up and beg on his knees. He was truly terrified that you'd kill him. For a split second, you really did want to completely cripple him. But thinking of Zhou Yao and your little girl, you held back from dealing a lethal blow. Meanwhile, Zhou Yao lay trembling on the bed. She didn't know how much time had passed, until she heard the loud splashing of water out in the yard, and realized you were finally back. taking a cold shower. After about 10 minutes or so, hearing the door click open and shut, in the pitch black, you assumed she was already asleep. Lightening your footsteps, you walked into the room, just about to feel your way onto the bed in the dark, when a soft, shaky voice came from the bed. "You're back." Zhou Yao reached out and clicked on the lamp. The room was instantly flooded with light. You froze in your tracks, seeing the woman on the bed propping her head up with one hand, her dark, silky hair spilling over her snow-white shoulders. Your eyes grew dark and intense. You stepped onto the bed, reaching up to click the light back off. In the comforting darkness, "It's all over now, sweetheart. Just go to sleep." The truth was, before you came back, she hadn't dared to close her eyes. She was terrified you'd lose control and kill the man, and equally scared of the vicious village gossip. She was so incredibly frightened, shrinking into your arms like a helpless little kitten. She pressed her cheek against your firm, burning hot chest. Listening to your strong, steady heartbeat, her quiet sobbing finally began to fade. She didn't dare cry out loud, afraid she might wake up your daughter. Seeing your wife looking so fragile, you only felt a pang of regret that you hadn't beaten that scumbag hard enough. You had originally figured your nasty reputation would be enough to keep the village thugs away. But you never expected some bastard would still dare to harbor filthy thoughts. Well, after tonight, anyone else with those kinds of sick ideas would definitely learn to behave. She looked up at her man, seeing the deep exhaustion written across his face, thinking about how he'd been leaving at the crack of dawn and coming home late every night, digging up wild dendrobium just to sell it, and handing every single penny over to her. Fiercely protecting her and tenderly coaxing her, she knew it now. He had truly changed. In the quiet darkness, Zhou Yao cried until she was utterly exhausted, drifting into a hazy sleep. Hearing the steady, even breathing of the man beside her, she finally let out a long sigh of relief. The next morning, Zhou Yao was gently pulled from her dreams by the sound of voices outside. Out in the yard, sister-in-law Zhao threw a huge handful of white sugar into a pot of freshly boiled water, pouring it out for each of the workers, one by one. In times like these, sugar was an incredibly rare treat. Usually, no one would spend money on a treat like this. Cao Fengji drank a bowl of sugar water, leaned in close to sister-in-law Zhao, and asked in a low voice, "Sister-in-law, yesterday, why did it sound like your sister-in-law was at home?" Sister-in-law Zhao set down the water kettle, and looked at Cao Fengji's gossipy face. "Your house is a whole mile away from his, and you still heard it? What, do you have nothing better to do at night than to squat under a young couple's window and eavesdrop?" Cao Fengji just smiled. Without saying a word, she thought about the rumors from last night, that you beat up that rascal Lazy from the east side half to death, and even broke one of his legs. And wouldn't you know, this city wife of yours hasn't been keeping quiet. Everyone's guessing she must be cheating on you behind your back. Cao Fengji was just dying to gossip about it. Sister-in-law Zhao couldn't be bothered with her, carrying the kettle over to pour water for the others. She walked up to you and shot you a knowing look, whispering, "Go check on Zhou Yao." Usually, she'd have been awake long before this. Don't let her get sick from the scare. You stopped moving the bricks and paused your work. When you got up this morning, she was indeed still fast asleep. It's already 10 o'clock now. You lifted the curtain and walked right into the bedroom. By the time you opened the door and walked in, Zhou Yao was already awake. You instinctively pulled her into your arms, turning your head to whisper to her, "Since you're awake, put your clothes on first. I'll bring some food in for you to eat in a bit." Your voice was a little husky. The curtains were still drawn shut. It was awfully loud outside, and Zhou Yao couldn't help but ask, "What's going on out in the yard? It's so noisy. We're rebuilding the courtyard wall. It's a total mess out there. Honey, don't come out just yet. There's still a lot of work to do outside, moving all those bricks." "Then shouldn't you let me go? Let me hold you just a little longer." You replied with a smile. Not only did you not loosen your grip, but you pulled her even tighter, telling her, "Give me a kiss, and I'll let you go. Stop messing around, let me go. There are people right outside." "How am I messing around? You're my wife. I just asked for one little kiss and you won't even give me that. Do you not love me anymore?" Your tone was a mix of acting wronged and playfully fierce. Zhou Yao wanted to explain herself, but in the end, she didn't say a word. She just leaned in and left a soft peck on your cheek. "There, now let me go." After getting that sweet kiss from her, a bright spark flashed in your handsome eyes. Thrilled, you cupped her small face and kissed her right back. "I love you so much, honey. Let me go, there really are people out there. I'm getting bored just staying in the room anyway. I want to go out and help." Without a second thought, you shot the idea down. "If you're bored, I'll have my sister-in-law come in and keep you company in a bit." Zhou Yao knew there was zero chance of her going out to help. Seeing you step out the door, she went back into the bedroom to play with her daughter. Thanks to all the extra hands helping out, the courtyard wall was completely finished just past 4 in the afternoon. The 2-meter wall was covered in broken glass along the top. Without a ladder, it would be hard enough for a normal person to scale a 2-meter wall, let alone one topped with nasty shards of broken glass. When building a house, you always secure the yard wall first. That's a first. Right behind your house, Cao Fengji giggled. When I came outside last night to use the outhouse, I saw that creeper lazy sneaking out of Zhou Yao's room. I bet they were doing it. No way. If that's true, then Zhou Yao is such a slut. Zhang Hongxia gasped. The two sisters-in-law kept whispering, winking at each other. They shot dirty, judging looks at Zhou Yao. You were watching them the whole time and saw everything. You heard every single word loud and clear. These two bitches were begging for a beating. To think your own uncle's daughters-in-law were this kind of trash. They claimed they were here to help out, but they were obviously just here for the free drinks. You saw right through them. Cao Fengji even brought her own mug, and her pockets were bulging. She clearly stuffed them with snacks meant for the helpers. You thought about how to deal with them. You had to teach Cao Fengji and Zhang Hongxia a harsh lesson once and for all, to save you future trouble. After dinner, you took a walk over to your uncle Wang Deshan's house. Uncle Deshan and his two sons hadn't split the property yet, so they all lived together. When you got there, the Wang family was right in the middle of dinner. Everyone was pretty surprised to see you show up. Zhao Kun, have you eaten? Your aunt Lu Shuken asked, shoveling a bite of rice into her mouth. She watched you walk toward her, not overthinking it. You walked straight up to Cao Fengji and violently grabbed her by the hair. Your sudden move stunned everyone in the room. Cao Fengji let out a terrified scream. As they finally snapped out of their shock, Wang Yi shot up from his chair. Zhao Kun, what the hell is wrong with you? You let out a cold laugh. What's wrong with me? Why don't you ask your damn wife? Cao Fengji never expected her gossip to reach your ears so quickly. She didn't think you'd come looking for her this fast. You began loudly exposing all of her nasty words. Lu Shuken and Wang Deshan's faces turned pitch black. What kind of awful daughter-in-law had they brought into their home? She was a total jinx. Usually, they were terrified their son would follow Zhao Kun and go astray, constantly warning him to keep his distance. And yet, this woman dared to go out of her way to spread nasty rumors about him. Cao Fengji cursed you in her head, but she couldn't find the words to defend herself aloud. Zhang Hongxia quickly stood up. Isn't there some sort of misunderstanding here? Zhao Kun, just let her go first. Cao Fengji is still your cousin-in-law. Zhang Hongxia, you're a piece of shit too. Sit your ass down. You two are exactly the same. Zhang Hongxia froze in embarrassment. She glanced over at her husband. Wang Yang stayed completely silent, clearly not wanting any part of this mess. You raised your hand and slapped Cao Fengji hard across the face. I'll teach you to run your mouth. I'll slap that filthy mouth right off your face. Cao Fengji was completely dazed by the blow. She never expected you to actually strike her, and no one in the Wang family even tried to stop you. You slapped Cao Fengji 6 times before finally stopping and letting her go. Cao Fengji was seeing stars, barely able to keep her balance. She stumbled and threw herself at Wang He, only to be violently shoved away by her own husband. Uncle Deshan muttered coldly, you were asking for it. Serves you right. Are you out of your mind, Cao Fengji? Why can't you just let Zhao Kun and his wife be happy? How dare you spread such vicious lies? She's obviously trying to stir up trouble. I never said those things. No one felt sorry for her even as she took a beating. All she could do was stubbornly deny it. Cao Fengji was backed into a corner. You didn't say those things? Do you dare to swear on it? Cao Fengji was just too naive. She was no match for a cunning fox like you. If you're lying, may your whole family drop dead, and your parents rot in hell. Those words completely shut Cao Fengji up. She felt guilty. Stammering, she couldn't utter a single word. As for what really happened, everyone could see it clear as day. You swept your gaze across the room. I'm laying it out right here, right now. If I catch anyone in the village gossiping, and trying to drive a wedge between my wife and me, don't blame me for getting ugly. If I beat you half to death, that's on you. As your words hung in the air, you delivered 2 more vicious kicks to Cao Fengji. Wang He took one look, stepped up, and started punching and kicking his own wife. Cao Fengji's face swelled up, and she begged Wang He for mercy over and over. Still, not a single person dared to intervene. Since you hadn't left, you clearly hadn't cooled down yet. Anyone trying to stop the fight would just be asking for trouble. After a long while, Lu Shuken let out a heavy sigh. That's enough already. If you hurt her too badly, we'll have to pay for the medical bills. Wang Yi's raised hand came down hard across Cao Fengji's face. That slap made the corner of her mouth bleed. That's for running your mouth. Keep talking trash, and next time I'll sew your lips shut. You let out a cold scoff. Leaving those harsh words behind, you stormed out. Inside the room, aside from Cao Fengji's quiet sobbing, there was dead silence. Having taught Cao Fengji a lesson, you felt completely refreshed. You happily headed home to your own wife. Seeing that you were gone, Wang Deshan shot Lu Shuken a glance, signaling her to take the two daughters-in-law to clean up the kitchen. Right in the middle of the living room, Wang Deshan, smoking in moody silence, tapped his tobacco pipe against the table. The two brothers, Wang He and Wang Yang, kept their heads down, terrified to make a peep. Wang He, Wang Yang, keep your wives in check. If I hear any gossip in the village about Xiao Si's family, even I won't be able to save you. You can't afford to mess with Xiao Si. I've heard he's turned over a new leaf lately, but the way I see it, don't come crying to me later when you regret it. I've said my piece. Creak, the old wooden door was pushed open. Cao Fengji quickly squeezed her eyes shut. She still had no clue what to do next. She had been married for several months, yet her belly still hadn't shown any signs of a baby. Her in-laws and even her own husband had just stood there and watched her get beaten without lifting a finger. What kind of cold-blooded people were they? Wang Yi walked in and didn't say a word. He just sat heavily on the edge of the brick bed, lost in thought. His mind was an absolute mess. He couldn't calm down. This younger cousin of his was far from simple. His dad had warned him not to cross paths with him, but his own wife was quite pretty. So the thought of just giving up on her and sending her back to her parents' house, he just couldn't bear it. Their eyes met. Neither of them said a single word. After what felt like forever, Cao Fengji slowly pushed herself up. I was wrong. Wang Yi was caught off guard. He never expected her to actually admit her mistakes. Seeing that he stayed silent, from now on, I'll behave and live a quiet life with you. I promise I won't step out the front door, or the back door. Wang Yi just stared at her for a few seconds, then turned his head and walked away. Cao Fengji turned around to look at his back, pursing her lips, a bit at a loss. Maybe she should take the initiative? The beating I took today absolutely cannot be for nothing. Early the next morning, Zhou Yao divided the proofed dough into 5 small pieces and put them in the pan to cook until both sides were golden brown. She was just about to pinch off a small piece for a taste, when she was startled by a sudden hug from behind. You were very tall, having to bend down just to hold her completely in your arms, resting your chin right in the crook of her neck. Zhou Yao flinched a little, but finally relaxed when she caught your familiar scent. She groggily turned her head, only to find you staring at the food in her hands. She gave a soft smile and fed the piece of flatbread right into your mouth. How does it taste? It's delicious. Honey, you really don't have to get up this early to cook for me. You should stay in bed and sleep a bit longer with the baby. Your smile was so sincere and natural. Of course, Zhou Yao wanted to do something nice for you. You're going hunting. The mountains are freezing, so it's best to have something hot in the morning. These past few days, I saw you just grabbing some dry rations before heading out. I'm heading out now. After you finished your breakfast, you put on your heavy boots, picked up your baskets, and started making your way up the mountain. After walking for about 2 hours, you successfully found that dendrobium plant. You pulled out your tools and got right to work. By the time noon rolled around, you had harvested all the dendrobium. Seeing that it was still early, you didn't head down the mountain right away. Instead, you started searching the area for dead logs. You wanted to try your luck, and sure enough, you stumbled upon a massive haul. You took a few big strides over. Were those mushrooms? No, since when are there such bright, blood-red dried mushrooms? Those were actually 4 lingzi mushrooms of different shapes and sizes. This trip up the mountain today was totally worth it. How come you never noticed before? These deep mountains were practically paved with treasure. You set down your baskets, snapped off some leafy weeds to line the bottom, then used your sharp blade to carefully harvest the lingzi and place them inside. You covered them up with another thick layer of grass. You were just about to leave when, out of the corner of your eye, you caught sight of an inconspicuous little hole next to the chestnut tree. There was loose dirt and tiny footprints scattered all around the entrance. Those were fresh tracks. It looked exactly like a badger's den. Badger meat is incredibly savory and tender. It would be perfect to nourish your wife's health. And badger fat is a precious medicine. But badgers are highly alert and cunning creatures, so trying to catch one head-on is no easy task. You decided to try your luck with the smoking out method. Rummaging through your spatial inventory, you found a small handful of dried chilies. Carefully, you stuffed them into the hole along with some dry kindling. The flames danced and thick, dark smoke began to billow upward. Carrying a sharp, pungent odor, the smoke poured deep into the badger's den. You stepped back to the side and waited patiently. Once the badger sensed the smoke and that awful stench, its instincts would force it to find an exit and flee. But you had already set up a sturdy net right at the entrance, just waiting for the badger to walk straight into your trap. It was a bit of a gamble, though. Badgers are expert diggers, building brilliant, complex dens that usually have multiple escape routes. You remembered watching Animal Planet once, where they said some badger dens can have over 130 exits. The seconds ticked by, one after another. The mountain forest was completely silent. Save for the occasional chirp of a bird, it was dead quiet. You kept your eyes glued to the hole. Your palms were sweating slightly. You waited for almost half an hour, but there was no movement. Just as you were about to give up and use wet branches to put out the fire, there was finally some movement at the mouth of the den. A furry badger's head poked out, its eyes flashing with panic through the smoke. A second later, its whole body squeezed out of the hole. And it made a frantic dash straight for the trap. With lightning-fast reflexes, you quickly yanked the rope, trapping it securely in the net. This badger looked to be around 20 pounds. With a 1 in 6 chance of picking the right den, you were more than satisfied to catch one this size. You pulled some water from your spatial inventory. Once you made sure the fire was completely out, you finally turned around and headed down the mountain. Meanwhile, back at home, some of the villagers had caught wind that you bought a television. Out of curiosity, they started showing up one by one, wanting to see what this television the city folks talked about actually looked like. All day long, your house was completely packed. Waves of people kept coming and going. During all this, a few villagers saw the pile of building materials Zhao Zhengxing had delivered. When they asked around and found out you were building a new house, they couldn't hide their shock. Everyone had something to say about it. Most of them thought you'd never be able to finish building it, figuring you just didn't have that kind of money. Behind your back, they gossiped that you had no idea how to manage your life, wasting so much cash on a useless metal box. They said it was a waste of both money and electricity. Zhou Yao, meanwhile, was completely drained just from dealing with the crowd of villagers who came to watch TV. She felt the house was even crazier today than it was on your wedding day. She was just about to sit down and rest when she saw you coming back with the bamboo baskets. Her eyes instantly lit up, and she hurried over to greet you with the baby in her arms. As you two were talking, she noticed the grass stuffed inside your basket. After the last few times, she could guess there was something good hidden inside just from seeing the grass. She couldn't help but wonder how you kept getting so lucky. After all, finding wild dendrobium was entirely a matter of luck. Yet you managed to bring some back every single time you went up the mountain. Zhou Yao was wearing a brand new red sweater, which made her fair skin look even more delicate and radiant. For a moment, you were completely mesmerized. As she walked up to you, you leaned down, wanting to plant a kiss on her cheek. Her face flushed red as she dodged him, Zhou Yao thinking to herself that this guy never took anything seriously. Always trying to kiss her in broad daylight over every little thing. Tianshan and her sister-in-law were both right there. Only then did you notice a few villagers in the house, and you looked at your wife in confusion. Seeing your confusion, Zhou Yao spoke up to explain. The folks all wanted to see what a television looked like, and thankfully, her sister-in-law had come over to help handle the crowd. You nodded and reached out to take the child from her arms. But looking down and seeing that your clothes were a bit dirty, you grabbed the basket and carried it into the kitchen instead. Turning to your wife who had followed you in, you bent down and whispered a few things into her ear. Zhou Yao glanced at the basket and nodded, saying she understood. Although she didn't know just how much stuff he had brought back, to her surprise, he still needed to head into the city first thing tomorrow morning. But she didn't ask too many questions. After all, there were still so many guests out in the living room. He actually dared to lean in so close. This guy, whose face was just inches away, had changed so much lately. Noticing your wife secretly checking you out, you grinned from ear to ear. Smack, smack, you planted a big kiss on each of your wife's tiny, palm-sized cheeks. Even as you spoke, your hands started to wander. Gently caressing her waist, you couldn't help but wonder, how could it be this incredibly thin? It probably wasn't even 21 inches around. Wifey, without me at home to keep an eye on you. You need to eat well, too. You're way too skinny. With your hands wrapped around her waist, Zhou Yao held the baby and shot you a playful glare. She was just about to scold you for fooling around at the wrong time, when she heard her sister-in-law shouting outside. Since Lao Si is back. Yao Yao, I'm gonna head home now. Old Zhao went to work in the fields, and he'll be back soon. As she said that, she started heading out. Zhou Yao quickly called out to stop her. Sister-in-law, wait a minute. She handed the little girl over to you and hurried out of the kitchen. She went into the east room, brought out a bag of rock sugar, and stuffed it into her sister-in-law's hands. She was terrified that you'd speak up and stop her from giving it away. Rock sugar was a rare luxury. She couldn't even bear to eat it herself. But if it weren't for her sister-in-law's help, life for her and the baby would have been so much harder. when her sister-in-law heard that a bunch of villagers were coming over to watch the commotion today. She even stopped spinning cotton to come over. If she hadn't come, with so many people around, how could Zhou Yao have possibly handled it all by herself? Back when they were dirt poor, they were always taking advantage of her sister-in-law. Now that they were a bit better off, she wanted to repay her. Even as sisters-in-law, she couldn't just keep taking without giving back. Sister-in-law, Zhao Kun bought this. Take it home for the kids to enjoy. No, no, no. You keep it for Niu. Sister-in-law, please, just take it. Her sister-in-law stared at the half a pound of rock sugar in her hands, completely dumbfounded. She quickly pushed it back. Sugar water was reserved for entertaining honored guests. How could an ordinary family afford something like this? If a newlywed bride could bring this back to her maiden home, her family would be so incredibly proud. The two women pushed it back and forth several times. Seeing that the bag was about to tear, her sister-in-law finally, albeit shyly, accepted the rock sugar. She turned and headed home. Zhou Yao was terrified that you'd be furious with her for making her own decisions. Fidgeting with the hem of her shirt, she stammered out an explanation. Zhao Kun, thank goodness my sister-in-law came to help. There were just so many people. I was completely overwhelmed. I almost even forgot to eat. So, I gave the rock sugar to her. Please, don't be mad. And please, don't lose your temper and go ask for it back. Looking at your wife's trembling, terrified little face, you felt like a hand was tightly squeezing your heart. Your heart absolutely broke. Your wife still didn't trust you. She was always terrified that one wrong word would end in you beating and cursing her. You really had brought this on yourself. Seeing you stay silent, Zhou Yao grew even more panicked. Looking like a kid who'd done something terribly wrong, she lowered her head and mumbled. Zhao Kun, I promise I won't ever do it again. Please, don't be angry. Holding your daughter with one arm, you gently pulled your wife into your embrace with the other. There were some things you needed to make absolutely clear to her. Misunderstandings could never, ever be left to fester overnight. Otherwise, they'd just pile up. For a married couple trying to build a life together, the worst thing you could do is hold things back. Without communication, it was all over. You gently patted her back, resting your chin softly against her hair, and spoke in the gentlest tone possible. Honey, you call the shots in this house now. You manage the money. Buy whatever you want to buy. I'll support every decision you make. I'm not just saying this because I'm mad. I truly mean it. Hearing those words at first, Zhou Yao genuinely thought you were just being sarcastic and angry with her. But you just kept saying it over and over, never actually changing. Zhou Yao finally let out a sigh of relief. Heaven knows she barely even dared to breathe just now, terrified that you would suddenly turn on her. Seeing your wife's breathing slowly steady, you finally let your guard down, too. It seemed you'd need to have a heart-to-heart with her every single night from now on. You thought about taking her to town to clear her head, but you knew she definitely wouldn't be willing. She'd be terrified that the second she turned her back, you'd sell your own daughter. Still, you felt it would do her good to get out of the house and relax for a bit. Do you want to take a walk down to the foot of the mountain with me? I'll hunt a quail so we can have a real feast. Zhou Yao actually really wanted to go, and it wasn't because she was craving quail meat, either. It was just that lately, you wouldn't even let her go work in the fields to earn work points. You just told her to stay home, recover her health, and focus on taking care of the baby. Back when she gave birth, she was out working in the fields by the very next day. You didn't care about her health at all back then, but now, you were suddenly so protective of her. And she had no idea what kind of bribe you gave to Wang Shenju. With both able-bodied workers in the family staying home from the fields, Wang Shenju didn't even come by to urge you to work. Seeing that your wife was clearly tempted to go, but was still holding back, her eyes nervously darting toward the people hanging around the courtyard. You knew exactly what it was. She was worried that if you both left, your belongings wouldn't be safe. You just laughed out loud. Don't worry about it, just wait right here. With that, you carried the baby out of the kitchen. God knows what you said to them, but everyone in the main room cleared out. You even chased Li Tianshan out of the house. Li Tianshan actually really wanted to tag along with your family of 3 to check out the mountain. Rumor had it there were tigers up there, so none of the educated youths ever dared to go near it. But seeing as she clearly wasn't welcome, she could only wander aimlessly around the village. On the way there, you noticed your wife glancing at you every so often, like she wanted to say something but couldn't get the words out. She stopped in her tracks, looking up at you with eyes full of hope. Zhou Yao gathered all her courage and asked, Zhao Kun, could I maybe visit my parents' house tomorrow? Is that all? Tomorrow, I'll go back with you. It had been so long since you two got married, and the man beside her was finally acting like a decent human being. You actually knew how to make money to support the family now. And how to take care of your wife and daughter. Zhou Yao wanted to go back to her parents' house. just to give her mother some peace of mind, so she wouldn't have to worry anymore that her daughter had married a deadbeat. You thought she had spent all that time psyching herself up for some huge request. But it was just this. You held your daughter in one arm, and took your wife's hand with the other. Tomorrow, we'll go back together.